Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call. Russ.
Here.
Dave.
Here.
Carolyn.
Here.
Kevin.
Here.
Robert. Here. All present.
Any visitors? Okay, we will, comments from the audience. Okay, we will move to approval of all items on the agenda are for discussion and possible action. So the first thing we will have here is approval of board meeting minutes for June 11th. Is there a motion? Maybe you haven't had time to look at it yet.
I would make one comment about under the approval of minutes. It says motion to approve the town board meeting minutes of May 12th, 2014. That should be 2018.
Where is, oh. Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of June 11, 2018 with that amendment.
is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded to approve the town board meeting minutes of June 11th, 2018 with a correction. Any discussion? Okay.
Roll call. Bob.
Aye.
Dave.
Aye.
Kevin.
Aye.
Russ.
Aye.
Carolyn.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, the next is approval of town board meeting minutes, June 18th, 2018.
I'll move to approve the minutes of June 18th, 2018.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the minutes, town board minutes of June 18th, 2018. Is there any discussion?
Okay, roll call vote. Bob.
Aye.
Dave.
Aye.
Kevin.
Aye.
Russ.
Aye.
Carolyn.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, the next one is approval of town board meeting minutes, June 23rd, 2018.
Move to approve June 23rd, 2018 special town board minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made to approve the June 23rd, 2018 special town board meeting minutes. Is there any discussion? Okay,
Roll call vote. Bob.
Aye.
Dave.
Aye.
Kevin.
Aye.
Russ.
Aye.
Carolyn.
aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Moving on to reports. Plan Commission, Deb Davis.
In our meeting this evening, we approved the two things on the agenda, the CSM for the Dialer property, which is a split of the land. They want to build a house on the additional land, and they're having it rezoned from rural residential to general A. The other one was the Seahafer property. We had approved the resolution. We needed to change the resolution because they changed the division of the land on the Seahafer property, and both of those were approved by the Plan Commission for the board's review and approval. Also, we voted to have our meetings at 6 o'clock on the second Monday of the month to coincide with the town board meeting. So we will have our meeting at 6 and yours will be at 7 then. Thank you.
Thank you. Rod?
Could I ask a quick question, Deb? The Seahafer approval today, is that the one that's on the agenda tonight?
Yes.
And can you tell me again exactly what happened, what was necessary to change?
They changed the land division from the first resolution to the resolution that we looked at this evening.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Fire department report to the town board. We had 2 EMS calls this last month. We had 1 rubbish fire, 1 chemical spill, and 1 flood assistance. The fire department's training for the last month was EVOC, and everyone has gone through and taken part in that. That's the driver's training that has to be done every year. And for July, our training will be hose testing. And we've already have about roughly half of the hose tested already this month. The DNR grant has been submitted for 2019. Underneath the EMS stuff, EMS and fire personnel will be training with Marshfield with individuals for the purpose of driving and evac of the ambulances, and also the familiarization with the equipment on the ambulances. The reason for doing this is that normally Marshfield had been rolling with 3 people on their first ambulance, and they have now decided that they're going to go down to 2 personnel. While they're going down to 2 personnel, at times on bad calls and stuff, they're going to be needing a driver so that both paramedics can be impacted with the patients. So our people are going to have to be stepping up to the plate and get the additional training. Because as of this point, they haven't really driven ambulances, they've driven fire trucks and our SUVs and stuff, but not ambulances. If anybody has any questions on this, either you can ask myself or ask Larry on this. This is something that's kind of just come down roughly about a week and a half ago. So it's still young.
So what kind of training are you gonna have to do?
Basically, it's going to be, normally we just take the EMS personnel in and we go over, show them where the backboards are, the jaws, stuff like that. Well, it's going to be all of the fire personnel also. And then also they're going to have to actually drive the ambulance through our course. I think most of you people have seen our cone course that we set up out here. Either it'll be out here or it'll be like a rail or someplace where the city sets it up. They may be doing it with all of the first responder groups.
Okay. Is that it? Any questions? Okay, thank you. Library Ruth?
Well, I think we all know that Farm Tech Days start tomorrow, but it doesn't alter the program selections for the younger children at the library. So that'll go as this calendar that people can pick up at the children's library section. Hub City Days is Saturday, July 29th. And the 100 block of South Maple is going to be what they call the family zone, and it'll be bouncy toys and different things that children can do. Looks like maybe the firemen are going to be there too. Half Twisted, Half Not Balloonist, who's always been very, very popular with the kids. And that will be all day long. And on Wednesday, July 14th, Michael Perry will be at the Community Center on 2nd Street, 1 o'clock. And I'm not sure, it doesn't indicate in here if he's doing a specific book or not, but he will have a book signing and as usual, entertainment.
Okay. Thank you.
Excuse me, Ruth. Could you tell me, where did you say the community center was? On what street?
It's on 2nd Street, 211 East 2nd.
Thank you.
The next is garbage and ordinances. We did find when the ordinances were approved.
The code adoption. So I've only gotten it tonight. I'm gonna look at it as an aside. I've been able to determine that if you do want to pass an ordinance for the next available election for a clerk or treasurer position, you would need to take action before November 1. So you've got a couple of meetings, and you can still ensure it's on the next available election. So you've got time to look that over to determine the best course to do that if you decide that you want to do that.
Lee, are you talking about a referendum or an ordinance?
Well, that's what I'm going to determine yet. Now, I found the document just tonight. I was able to get it, so I'm going to have to look at it, longer than tonight. But you do have by November 1, and you can have it on the 19 election. Now, if you do it after November 1, the law's a little unclear. It either goes to the next year or 2 years. I think it's more likely that it's 2 years.
2 years or an odd year.
Because the statute says it has to be an odd year for the clerk election, and that they have to serve a 2-year term. So it doesn't really jive that you could have a 1-year term and all that. There's not a special election for the clerk. You understand? So that's different than a special election for a vacant board member, which is an option. So I'll look more into that. I'll give you something in writing because it's a bigger decision this time. Okay? But the key is you've got till November 1. Bottom line, even for the next year.
Okay. Highway, Dave.
Where do I begin? The rain event on the, I believe it was the 18th, we had culverts out and had to be replaced. Galvin north of the town hall, Galvin south of the town hall, Spruce Street, Birch Street, Highway 97 between, Birch Street 97 between 97 and County Trunk T, culverts, 60-inch culverts on Drake, so they had to be reset and replaced. After we had done that, we had people, I called Pat about 5:30 in the morning. We talked to several individuals that came from the north. They said everything was okay coming from the north. We concentrated on the one in the south, found out that quite a few of them were undermined. People were driving across the top of the culverts that hadn't collapsed, and all they were riding on was the blacktop. At that point in time, we paged out the fire department and got rigs set up at the different points. People sometimes listen, sometimes don't. It's very disheartening when you say the road is out and they say I can't get there when I have to go this way. But that's the way it is. So after the first or second day, Pat and I went around the rest of the townships and found several others undermined. One of them was 97 on Stott, the intersection of Highway 97 and Stott. Also south on Stott, south of the locker plant, about a half a mile. Zig Street and also Klein the water had run over Klein and Marsh Road intersection and it undermined that one. That's the ones I can think of right off the top of my head here. So we, on Tuesday, I believe it was, there were 8 residents on Spruce. We notified them and said they had to be out by at least 8:30, 9 o'clock if they wanted to get out. There was no way to get out otherwise. We contracted a contractor locally, and Pat and the fire department and myself, by probably about 5 o'clock that evening, we had traffic going back across Spruce. I believe there was about 8 residents that lived in there, 6 to 8. The rest of them, we replaced Galvin South, Galvin North, Birch Street, between 97 and T, and also Drake, the 60-inch culverts on Drake turned up. That turned into an emergency situation because the plastic culverts turned upright on the end. We had about 12 to 15 acres of water behind it, and so Pat went back and got the Cruiser, and we pulled one of them to relieve the pressure, otherwise we would have lost that road completely. Drake. In pulling the one, it also flooded along Pine Street and just about overrun that one to get to the river. So it was an emergency situation. Most of these have been replaced, and or are going to be replaced in the near future. So I think we kind of blew the budget on everything we had there. I think we got traffic moving. There's signs at the intersections. We still have to get the patches where the new culverts went in patched and blacktopped on the blacktop road. So that's what's on the agenda in the next couple of weeks. Any questions or comments?
I did have a couple questions. You had mentioned that culverts were replaced or need to be replaced at Drake, Galvin North, and south of the hall, on Spruce and on Birch, and Highway 97 at the intersection of County T and 97. And
What was the last one?
at County T and Highway 97?
No, it's on Birch Street between County Trunk T and 97.
Okay. Between County T and 97. And then,
Zig,
at,
Zig Street culvert has to be replaced, and also the one at Clain, intersection of Clain, K-L-O-E-H-N, and Marsh Road.
K-L-O.
E-H-N.
Got it, and Marsh Road, I had that, just not the spelling, thank you.
We had good cooperation from Phil Rentmeister from Marathon County Emergency Government. There's also a gal that came in and recommended that we upsize from the, I believe, District 4 she was out of Adams County, correct?
Wisconsin Rapids.
Wisconsin Rapids, but she had been doing some work in Adams County, I believe she said. So we went with her recommendation. The one that we had our engineer look at was the one down here on Galvin North. At one point in time, there was a bridge there, and that was a crushed culvert, I believe, of 48, and so we went to a 60 and a 48. We originally was recommended that we take a 54. They don't make 54s, they make 60s and 48s, so that's what we went with. So we have to get all that documentation, bills submitted from all the contractors that we had do that work. Some of it's in the payroll for tonight. Some of it isn't. So, any questions?
Just one other thing you may want to mention, the barricades for Marshall.
Yes.
It's been about 20 minutes.
Yeah, we had called, and Rodney knows they had the connection with the city for barricades, so we put barricades up and also snow fenced them, because we had people moving barricades after the road said closed. When the darn road says closed, it means closed.
But his point was, I think, is that we got a lot of barricades from the city.
Right.
There were like 16 of them with road closed signs, and like I said, they were out here in about 20 minutes after the first phone call.
Yes. Actually, the city came out and helped us set several. Dorothy?
What are we going to do with Fox?
That is marked for some ditch work, and I believe the telephone lines run in there, and that's always been a pain to try to get that, put a crown on that road. It's marked, it isn't done yet, but we'll get to
No,
it.
I know it's not done yet.
Pardon me?
I know it's not done yet.
Yeah.
I know, it always, is Phil's culvert big enough?
Is what?
Is this culvert big enough?
Actually, it comes down the driveway and runs out onto the road. And that's
So they keep
because the
on- they
ditch
keep
over
on
the
the
years
field.
is silted in from farm field and also from above on the road. And the reason that it hasn't been addressed is because of the utility lines that are in there. Maybe we're just gonna have to go in, I think they were marked. Was somebody down there marked them, did you know?
They were marked a couple weeks ago.
Okay. We're working on getting to,
Yeah, well, I mean, I just was wondering how you were going to address that there.
well, the ditch has gotta be cleaned out. And the culvert has to be cleaned out too.
Because then when it gets down to the end of the road to Mitch's, then it needs to go across underneath there someplace.
Yep.
And that is a private driveway, I see now, so.
No, that's a right of way that I own.
I know. I know what the flag book shows.
There's a point of discussion there, that is a right of way that I own. Because I have 35 acres down there.
Anything else, Dave?
Unless somebody has some questions.
Okay, let's go to town hall maintenance, Kevin.
I talked to Randy Friday night. He was hoping by the end of this week to get going on the concrete. I think we're gonna have to pick a cutoff time that he's either got it done or we're gonna have to get somebody else to do it because it needs to get done this year. So I'd have to say by next month if he's not in. I'll talk to him again if he doesn't get it started pretty quick, and then I'll contact a couple other guys and see who's got some time and try and get a quote on what it's gonna cost to get that done, so. Nothing with the Eagle Scout back after, I met with his dad and we looked at the actual project and what they had in their head to begin with and what's actually feasible for a bunch of 14-year-old kids to do. Within that, I did talk to Jamie Leonard the other day, and they said that they were still willing to help out if that's a goal.
When they get it together, yeah, okay. Okay, thank you. Anything else? What were you gonna do about the door here? Was there something?
That was already fixed.
That was done.
Kevin, you mentioned Randy, you spoke with Randy. Is there a name or last name or business name?
Randy Gessert.
G.
G-U-E.
SSERT,
Okay, thank you.
and what is his, Gessert Concrete?
I'm thinking so.
Close enough.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Russ, you have anything to talk about here?
Nope, Gary hasn't told me what to do yet.
Okay, all right.
You got a deadline for articles, Russ?
Hmm?
You got a deadline for articles? We usually put one out before Fall Festival.
Before Fall Festival?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I don't.
So, what is it? We gotta submit.
September is September 8th.
See,
is
it
Fall
better be in by
Festival.
your August meeting.
There you go.
August.
That's what I'm asking for.
Okay,
You never get around time anyway.
okay. So get your articles in for the next meeting. Okay, buildings and grounds, Todd?
Nothing new to report.
Okay. Okay, we'll have the clerk's report.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Rod, can you turn on the projector while I start my report? For those of you who haven't met me already, my name is Mike Taylor. I was the former clerk at the town of Stockton in Portage County. It's a community of about 3,000 people, 5 zip codes, budget of about $1.2 million. A couple things I had to mention today. I wanted to make a reminder about the open meeting law. If you were on a committee or any type of ad hoc committee or general committee or board, a member of something like the plan commission or whatever, if you have a quorum, you need to be careful about what kind of business you're conducting. Even if it means talking on the telephone or sending emails amongst each other. So in other words, if you're on a committee of 3 people and 2 of you are talking together, that meeting, if I'm correctly, should be noticed.
It's even more dangerous. You can have a walking quorum of even fewer than the actual quorum, because, for example, if 3 of you showed up tonight and 2 of you already discussed something, you've got a problem there. So, just something to be very careful about.
I had a resident ask me about chickens, and I looked up our chickens or animal ordinance in our book, and all I could come up with is that fowl cannot run at large or interfere with passing public or neighbors. Does anybody know about chickens in the town and their treatment?
That changed when they updated the code, the county
Okay.
code, and I don't think there's,
Yeah, I had gotten something from the county, but it wasn't really clear. I was just
I
wondering if we
think
had,
they meant to keep it that way.
did we have, so we don't have a town ordinance that you're aware of
No.
about
I think it's
chickens?
just a county zoning matter.
Okay, see county zoning again, I guess.
Or if there's a restrictive covenant in a subdivision.
Yeah, I covered that base already. Okay. Summary of clerk hours. I would give you an accounting of my time. It's real easy to do for me because it's my schedule. I put a schedule together in Outlook, which is the same program we use for managing the email. And there's a calendar within there. And I just set up my calendar every day and I tweak it as kind of just to show you how I spent my time each day. My first week here, I spent, I was appointed the night of June 18th and was here a couple hours to get payroll done. And then it was a full court press to get ready for elections. I had to get all my election training in that week because the following Monday, absentee ballots had to be issued for anybody of record. So I had to do that to meet a statutory deadline. The following week, I put in 32 and a half hours, and I've been putting about that in every week since. So that's an accounting of my time. I will tell you this, without any support from the previous clerk, everything's an adventure in that office. Finding the simplest of tasks are difficult, just to find things needed to conduct everyday business. But slowly but surely, it'll all come together. I wanted to make you aware of any questions about my time spent. Okay. There is a joint meeting of the Marathon County Eastern/Western Towns and Villages Association meeting. It's going to be held in Marathon City on Thursday, July 26th at 7:30 p.m. at the Rib River Ballroom. Does anybody need that information one more time?
The date again, please.
Thursday, July 26th at 7:30 p.m. at the Rib River Ballroom in Marathon City. There's going to be a presentation from the DATCAP, or Wisconsin Department of Ag, Trade and Consumer Protection Secretary, legislative update from the Towns Association. It's like the Marathon County Minutes hosting it. filing of planning and zoning activity. Before I go through all of the planning and zoning report activity for this month and pretty much up to today, I wanted to ask you a question because it was one of my questions. I was looking for a file by address for each and every one of the properties, residences, anybody that's got basically any property that's got any parcel that's got an address associated with it. And I was told that there wasn't one over in the clerk's office, that they're all maintained here, and I found them. So my question is, who makes sure that those files are populated so that, let's say, for example, someone applies for a building permit, it lands in the correct address file rather than somebody's name file because names change at properties. Who is responsible for that, for maintaining those files?
I think you just volunteered.
Well, I think that it hasn't been done for about a year. So I have a hard enough time doing my work as opposed to everybody else's work.
So there's been nothing documented for the last year?
Well, I'm not saying that.
He wants to know who is filing them as they should be in the plan commission.
I mean, we get email notices, the clerk's office gets email notices that so-and-so has applied for a zoning permit to erect a garage, okay? So that information then will get passed on to the planning commission, at least, to see if that's something that they want to take up. You know, if they need to take that up, okay? So there's one point of contact. Then they'll take action on it, and then they'll present it to the board, and then it'll get, you know, if it gets passed or whatever, there's another point of contact. So my question is, how do you want, you know, think about how you want this done, because it hasn't been done, right?
That's correct. And Deb, we've had a conversation, Deb and I, and we have had a conversation about, she has never done any of the filing, and we have just a pile of all of them. She's retiring from her work in September, and we hope to, at that point, after that, to tackle that.
Okay.
Work on it. In fact, I didn't know that even existed,
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just,
They,
I'm not here to point fingers, I'm just here.
exactly, you just
The
want to know
clerk
how
is
it's
the keeper of
done.
the
Well,
records.
that's what
ultimately.
it has, we've been remiss on that.
Okay.
Well, I think for a
John?
while now, there's been a lot of discussion of lack of proper filing and everything else, so
Right.
whether we have to set something up or,
Well, that will be the plan commission, that will be through them.
well,
I
not just
think
plan, but I mean, in the clerk's office and everything else.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We need to get something standardized and
Oh,
the
absolutely.
rules of how it's gonna be for
Yeah.
anybody in the future, so you
Well-
can go back and find stuff.
Yeah, ultimately, it's the clerk's responsibility to maintain the records of the town. But with the turnover you've had in clerks, your records room has suffered. Okay. Notices of permit activity. I have a permit for DNR discharge for Mullins Cheese that may or may not have been reported to you. It was laying in the open, and I just assumed that it hadn't, so I'm telling you again. Douglas and Julie Seehafer applied for a residential short storage shed at M419 Man Street. I might have to help me with the names. Gerald Hartle, is that correct? Hart? Hartle, okay. At applied for a detached garage permit at M138 Stott. There's two A's in Stott, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, it's misspelled here. Douglas and Julie Seehafer had an application for shoreland alteration at M431 East McMillan Street. And if any, you want to know any more about any of these, just let me know and I'll stop. Justin and Becky Sarah, is that right?
CERA.
CERA. At M420 Birch Street, is doing a residential remodel on a deck. Gerald and Naomi Jensen applied for a permit for a hay shed at M406 North Drake Avenue. Kelly and Casey Hintz applied for a sanitary permit at 417, is it Maggie? Maggie or Maggie? Maggie, okay. At Maggie. Let me get these down. Dane and Jennifer Stretz, okay, sorry about that, we'll get these. Applied for a permit for 3 grain bins at M521 Stott. And if there's any of these that haven't been taken up by the planning commission, let me know, okay, so that we, Deb, if there's any of these that haven't.
I don't think if it's just building permits, they don't usually come to the
Yeah.
planning commission, it's just zoning changes, they usually come to the planning commission.
If any of these ring a bell as to someone that needs action,
Okay,
let me
I
know,
will.
okay? John and Joni White applied for a permit to replace an old shed at M309 Felton Lane. Seahafer Acres Incorporated applied for a permit for a freestanding garage at M243 State Highway 97. Alan, I'm gonna need help with his last name. Corral? Carol, okay. Applied for a, Marathon County has sent him a second notice for a failing sewage system and with instructions to resolve it. And I had a question. Kenneth Shrug Excavating and Trucking applied for and received by my signature a multiple trip port permit for, looks like the week of July 9th through the 14th. He's got 3 heavy equipment, pieces of heavy equipment that he needs to exceed the weight limits on for hauling gravel, etc. My question is, in my previous municipality that I worked in, the town chairman signed these. Is that what you do here?
Yes. They're a one-time overweight limit.
Okay,
That it's a permit that you
okay,
can download.
okay. Well, he downloaded it and filled it out, but is this something that you sign and not the clerk?
I have in the past. Uh-oh.
Okay.
Maybe that needs to change.
I know that like for spring weight limits, as an example, our town chairman used to,
Yeah, well, but we have also, Kevin is in charge of the IOH
Okay,
business, so,
okay, well, this is pretty much an IOH, because, isn't it?
No,
no,
different
It's
classifications.
in addition to,
yeah.
I would think any overweight permit, any supervisor or board member or clerk should be able to, as long as somebody knows and the report comes in at the next month that it was done.
okay.
So he's got a certain period of time, he's doing it to a certain address, or?
He is servicing a project at, the project's for Bob Spring at M242 Galvin.
Yes,
I guess there's a
Bob
pit
Spring
not far
called me.
away.
yeah, Bob Spring called me and I told him to download it and bring it into you.
Okay, all right, so where do these go once I guess we'll have a file for
overweight.
seasonal
Mhm.
or other weight restriction.
And I think for the permit number, I think Patty and I discussed that at the time. I think just the date was good enough for the permit number. So it was pretty easy.
Yeah, this doesn't have a spot for a permit number on it. Okay, sounds good. Okay.
Who's doing the one?
All right, tax exempt forms. This being an even year, in March, on March 31st of every even year, the town clerk will send out I think it's a P-220 form to all holders of tax exempt property, churches, mostly churches. And they are instructed to fill that out and get it back to the clerk's office by March 31st each year in order to maintain their tax exempt status for the property that they hold. I do not see any record of those forms having been sent to the residents.
Yes, they are.
Like I said, I don't see any record of it. If you have any record of it, I'd love to have
They
a
were
copy.
right in the corner of the desk.
Okay, but I had copies of them, but there was no record that they were sent out because they weren't completed. There's financial information that they have to write on them. The blank form that they fill out was there. The completed form was not.
There was only one that was returned, if I remember correctly.
There was one, and there's a total of 5. So, there's a statutory deadline of July 2nd to submit that information to the Department of Revenue, and consequently, that deadline was not sent or met because I actually emailed those forms to the remaining 4 properties. So I'm making you aware that there are some people, even though I've applied for an extension through the Department of Revenue, there are some people that might get kind of mad if their tax exempt status is interrupted. QuickBooks. Okay. Rod, do you have the, can you get that to turn on?
Did you screen up? Because it was there and then it disappeared.
It was there, but it's not there anymore.
It's on the right one.
It is.
Your computer go to sleep, huh?
No. So there was QuickBooks stuff out there, up there,
Yes.
a little minute ago? Oh, that stinks. There we go. Okay, good. Good. All right. First thing I want to show you. You got it, Rob? Oh, there. Don't bump it, it was ready. In QuickBooks, not QuickBooks, in governmental accounting, we do our accounting on what's called cash basis as opposed to accrual basis. So what that means is when you receive a check, it's not recognized as income until you deposit it. When you receive a bill, it's not recognized as a bill until you pay, until you write a check for it. As opposed to an accrual basis, when you receive a bill, it will go into what's called accounts payable, and then it's recognized right away when you get the bill that you have debt. Well, government accounting does not use an accrual basis, and there is an accounts payable account here that has it's probably tough for you to see here, but there's a negative $16,213.33 balance in that account. The normal balance in accounts payable, if it were used, is supposed to be a positive number. So, you can go to a function here for vendors called Pay Bills, and it will tell you what bills are outstanding. Here in this case, there's $50 worth of bills to pay, and negative $16,000 and change in your accounts payable account. So this accounts payable account needs to get sorted out. And in my 30 hours a week, I'm not going to be able to pull it off. In some cases, if I scroll up farther, you can see here, like the 11th of June, CarQuest, $22.63 was paid. It was assigned to a $53,000 account in Public Works shop operations. Okay, so that got assigned to an account. But if you scroll up further, I'm going to show you something else though first. You scroll up to like the end of the year. Any bills should have been paid by the end of the year, and that accounts payable account should have been brought down to zero. At the end of 2017, it was at a negative $6,401.95. So we need to clean this up. I've got someone I work with at Accounting Workshop in Stevens Point, I work very closely with at the town of Stockton. He does the Form Cs and financial work for a number of municipalities and school districts. There's a number of other things that I'm going to point out to you that need to be corrected. I have a hard enough time doing the business of the present day clerk. So I'm not going to be able to fix all the errors of the previous clerks. So I'm planting the seed right now as I show you some of the other things that have to be overcome. This is the first of them. We need to make sure that all these accounts referenced in this accounts payable of the balance of negative $16,213.33 had all the monies assigned to the appropriate accounts, so that you can get an accurate budget versus actual report. So that's the first item of business as far as housekeeping and QuickBooks is concerned. The second order of business. Payroll items in QuickBooks. You can go to a paycheck. I can go to mine. As an example. All these, I don't want these shown here. It's not appropriate to have those numbers up there. You're going to have to take my word for it that I'll give you an example. When it's time, the fire department has a meeting, and the people in attendance at the meeting get credit for being in attendance at the meeting, just like board members get credit for being at the town board meetings. There's a number of payroll items that either are assigned to a payroll liabilities account or Like in the case of fire department meetings, that time's being charged to the town board meeting account. There's a number of payroll items like that need to get cleaned up. So I'm just making you aware of that. The 2018 budget, we can create a report for you, memorize report, budget. I can do a budget versus actual report for you. Let's see here. Okay, here's an example of what a previous clerk did for your January through December 2017 activity. I know this is tough to see, but the point is that she did it. There's a budget, there's your actual number, and then your budgeted number here. Now, watch what I do when I change this date to present day, January through June 2018. You see that column where it says budget? You've never received a budget versus actual report because the 2018 budget has not been loaded in QuickBooks. See that column is blank where it says budget. So that'll be the next order of business. All that data that we'll go over today, because you've got a budget to amend, the detailed line item budget has to get loaded into QuickBooks for the corresponding accounts that are listed here. Okay? All those numbers. All right, next item. Your tax savings account. Each month, the clerk pays all your bills and takes the deposit information that they've made photocopies of over the course of the month, and then compares it with the treasurer's deposit information, and they work on a reconciliation statement comparing the clerk's books with the treasurer's books. I look at your chart of accounts. These are all expenses. I don't want expenses. Income accounts, asset accounts, bank accounts. Okay. Your tax savings account. All your money, any deposit, any receipts, you come in, you pay your bill with the treasurer's office, that money lands in the tax savings account. You see that there is a balance in the tax savings account of negative $2,574,980.51. Donna, how much at the end of June was in the tax savings account? I know what the number is, but I wanted her to tell you.
$336,290.34.
So you've got a discrepancy of over $2.2 million in this tax account. My question to you is, how is the clerk supposed to reconcile their books with the treasurer's books when the books are not maintained? I know why this number is the way it is. There are no deposits. There are only withdrawals taken out of this tax account. All of your deposits never made their way into
It's
this.
just in the wrong column.
No. You're gonna have, you didn't receive even numbered dollar deposits from the public. Those odd deposits get put in here, and then these get dispersed into the Pioneer Bank account so that the town can pay bills. So you evidently, in January, you moved $2 million out of that account so that you could pay bills, pay school districts,
Correct.
pay the county, pay the state, pay the DNR. You know, so all that money was moved, the money moving out was kept track of, but the money coming in was never kept track of. And so it goes across the board for almost every account I own. There are other accounts that haven't had the interest added into it. A couple of them, CD accounts are okay, they're not too far off the base. But that's my question. How are you supposed to reconcile your numbers with the treasurer's numbers when the clerk's numbers are not correct? So there's a lot of work, there's a lot of repair work that has to be done. And when we talk about, later today, when we talk about on the agenda, audit of town books and QuickBooks repairs, I hope that you would consider allowing me to get some help to fix this. Other than that, are there any questions? Because Donna is going to take care of the financial report that we reconciled the checking, the Pioneer checking account together, and created a checklisting report for you for checks to approve. So, do you have any other questions for me?
I have a question, Mike.
Yes.
Don't we have regular audits, and wouldn't an audit have caught this kind of problem?
Yeah, well, a town can order an audit anytime. It's usually in your best interest when there's a staff change to do that. And I think in this case, I really request that because it's not my work, you know, that it's not allowing you to have a budget versus actual report and that type of thing, so.
But there's not a routine audit that occurs annually, let's say?
The routine audit is when you have a change, typically, isn't there?
So, a town government is required to have an annual audit when you have a combined position of clerk treasurer.
Right.
So one person instead of Mike and Donna. There's not actually an audit requirement in the law for a town when you have separate positions as you do. So you can provide for one, there's just not that statutory requirement.
Okay. Just thought it was good practice, I guess.
There's nothing wrong with having one, except you pay for them,
Yeah.
of course.
Right.
I did call the auditor and spoke to him. The last audit we had was 2015. So I asked him if he would come in, would he consider coming in and going through 16 and 17. And he said, are all your documents there? I said, I don't know. And I said, that would have to be through the clerk. And he said, it will cost you $12,000 to $15,000 to have, for us to come in, because we've already, in the past, we've always had them done in the spring, March or April. And so we've already passed that period of time. They're already into their own schedule. It would have to be after September if they were gonna do it. And that's what it would cost. Is $12,000 to $15,000 at this point.
I can tell you that Accounting Workshop in Stevens Point will do a Form C for about $1,000. He said that if your charter of accounts has to be reworked, that's about $1,000. And I think in the process of reworking that, you probably have, and correcting the errors that are here, I would estimate another $1,000. And what they can do is actually you make in QuickBooks you make what's called an accountant copy of the books, and then email it to them, and then they work on it, and then they freeze it. They freeze everything. So what he'd end up doing is taking a copy of last year's Form C and our end of the year financial statements that were created, and then making sure that they still match. Okay, so like as an example, I found a couple of, at least 2 checks that were supposed to have been voided, but they were deleted instead. So that automatically changes your, it gives you more money in your checking account in December than you ought to have. It wasn't a lot of money, but it's some money. One thing you might consider is, okay, well, you might consider authorizing like up to $2,000 worth of QuickBooks repair work, as an example, and leave it at that.
So what's the time, when some of these things that you're bringing up, what's the time frame of like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, to 2 months ago? Some of these things that you're
well, the accounts payable account that has cash in it, the discrepancy there is at least a year and a half old. Because there was negative $6,400 and something, I believe, at the end of last year was still in that account that should have been zeroed out and closed, at the end of last year. Would have made it a lot easier now because now all the transactions have to be backtracked, and you have to figure out where that money really belongs, and then make correcting journal entries. An accountant would do that. I wouldn't want to be doing that, putting my name on it.
So through the process of split clerk and treasurer positions, through the last how many years have we been doing this? As a resident, not just a board member, but that's troubling to hear.
Well, it should be troubling to hear. The saving grace is Donna's maintained good books, and it's the clerk's, but it's also the clerk's job to maintain good books, and then those two have to reconcile those numbers. You see, in an example in the report that Donna's going to give you, her and I arrived at the correct, we arrived at matching checking account numbers. I couldn't do all the other accounts because they're not correct. I can't reconcile an account that's negative $2.5 million off base if it's wrong, from the get-go. So you'll see in the financial report that she gives you, we come to the same number through 2 different paths. It's okay. It's okay to have 2 different accounting systems. It's part of the accountability of the two offices. So, like I said, Donna's been pretty good help here with her books.
We get a statement every month at the meetings. How is it that all of a sudden now we're able to refer back to a year and a half ago with the mistakes when we've
Well-
been getting the reports and everything should have been reconciled.
I'll give you a good example. There's older reports that previous clerks have done prior to prior to the first of the year, where the reconciliation, the level of reconciliation and the number of accounts associated with it is much deeper. The previous clerks have taken the money that's in the tax account, the money that's in the fire department savings account, CD, 2 CDs, a Parkland savings account, and reconciled, included those numbers in the reconciliation. If you look in the reports that you've been given this year, only the main checking account numbers have been reconciled. And, to make matters worse, I'll show you another example. In the primary checking account, and this is another example of how can you ask the clerk and treasurer to reconcile if the clerk hasn't reconciled in the first place. Each month, after we enter in our deposits, we go into reconcile. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the bank statement from that month and check off everything. Well, look at this. This account, this is your main checking account. In QuickBooks, it says last reconciled November 30th of 2017. How can you ask the clerk to reconcile their numbers with the treasurer if you yourself haven't reconciled the account? So what you do is you take this date, it gets changed to the statement date of 12/31. You enter, hopefully this beginning balance is only a couple of cents off, but the ending balance is not correct. So I ordered all copies of all the bank statements since that time and started looking at it. Well, here again, I've got a hard enough time doing the work of the present day clerk besides doing yesteryear's clerk work. So each and every one of the accounts, I'll give you, so that's your primary checking account. Let's go to the next one. Your tax savings account. Hit the reconcile banking and reconcile tab here. Here again, last reconciled 11/30 of 2017. That's the last time they reconciled the account. I'll go on. You've got more bank accounts. This bank account, the Park Fund account. Go to banking and reconcile. Last time it was reconciled, 11/30/2017. There's interest bearing on those accounts, isn't there? If you'd like to know what they are, if you needed to complete Form C with your interest and everything, you didn't get that number from the clerk, but at least not in QuickBooks, you didn't, because it hasn't been reconciled. Now, let's see, there's probably one more. Fire department savings account. That one's off 10 grand. Donna, at the end of, last entry in this account is 11/30/2017. How do you reconcile that every month if it hasn't been updated? Donna, what was in the fire department savings account at the end of June? Wasn't there about $27,000 in it?
Yes, because at the end of the year in January, we moved the monies from the Fall Fest account balanced. And once that reconciled, then that money got transferred by the board in January, I believe, in December, January, into that account, out of the general checking. That's omitted, whatever that's omitted, but that's what we did.
Mm-hmm. And just for kicks, I'm gonna hit the banking and reconcile thing. Again, it hasn't been reconciled since November 30th of 2017. So all those accounts, you have to take the bank statements and plug in, you know what I mean? And recreate that activity and enter it into QuickBooks And then each month you can reconcile it. You can catch up and do that, but this is all busy work. This is all busy work.
So is that what you're talking about, this person or company?
Well, they can do
named
some of it.
Stephen Boyd?
They can do some of it. Yeah, they can do some of it. Some of this will be on my back though, to enter it.
What is that service and point?
Accounting workshop, Jeff Kropp.
So it's a business?
Oh yeah, they're CPAs, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
When Patty and Steve left, they both worked out of the same accounting system. Steve would put in his username and password and put in all the deposits for the income that we received. After they left, getting the information from Donna, she told me that was not her job, my job, it was hers. It was the treasurer's to take care of that account, those accounts. So without having that information, you couldn't put it in there.
You get the copy, you got a copy of each bank statement every month.
And you could request the copy of her deposit book.
Well, I should have had the deposit. She gave me, she never gave me any deposits from any of the taxes. None.
They're on the statement. Plus they go into the tax account, they go into the statement, they're all there, which you get copies of.
Mhm.
Okay,
So what are we gonna do?
Well, that's later. That's later.
You've got an agenda
That's
item
later.
to talk about that later, okay?
Mhm.
I just wanted to present the problem to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
okay, we're on to finance. The top of this thing is the reconciliation for each one of those columns. Usually if you go back and look from the last month, there's only just a tad bit of interest in all of them. You make transfers out of the tax account when needed, goes into the general checking. So that is your reconciliation. The one that we always compare is the first one for the checking account. The balance on the bottom is the same as my reconciliation, which he and I did. Now, as far as all that stuff goes, she inherited a mess. She didn't find documents. There were things wrong. There was a big mess. The difference is in that accrual system, how this is how I see it. In that accrual system, I'm not sure how they stop. I don't use that accounting system. I'm not able to get in it. I don't want to get in it. That's why there's two of us, and that's why I keep my books my way. He keeps his books his way. The treasurer every month, the clerk every month gets the same statements from the bank that I do. So the interest, deposits, and everything are on that, to be transferred. So that's how she reconciles it. How she reconciled it in there, I don't know. As long as the numbers were the same, we signed off on these. That's how that works. Okay, so we have been aware, both Deb and myself, and Michael now as well, that the 16s and 17s were not audited. The last audit you had was the 15th. We've discussed this in length as to what our feelings were because of what was going on in that accounting. First of all, I think we all agreed that the two parties that were there for 16 and 17 should not have been working in the same program. How do you check one another if you work in the same program?
I agree.
And when I first came on board in December, the only number I wanted to be responsible for is the one that the board gave me on the December 31st of 17, which was 55,000 and change. That's the number when all of these things are reconciled off of. That's how I do mine, because my system is cash basis, and at the end of the year, it's closed out and the balance left over is transferred into a new year. Nothing from the previous year goes into the ensuing year. So that's how my system works. These things are exactly what's on the bank statements that he verified as well. That's why he gets copies as well. That's how that is done. So we're both very confident in from December 31st till today that this is your actual and your checking account and all accounts. We went into the bank statements today even to verify. The ones for the CDs don't change. They do not post the interest as it goes. those numbers will stay the same until they mature. The Fall Fest account, that one remains the same. The only thing is, that's interest bearing. The only one that is not interest bearing is your general checking account. So Mike and I went over all these numbers. They're no different than they have been the last 6 months. They're good. But I think 16 and 17, I'm not going to say that they're wrong, but because of what he's showing me, I've not been in this program ever. But from what he's showing us, I would recommend you do something. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe in most towns, when you don't do an audit, that you kind of do an internal audit of your own. You can check it out and make sure basic numbers, they should be doing that, somebody should be doing that. That's why you get this account. You can check each month from month if there's any major discrepancies, and usually it's just a few cents worth of interest. You can look at that. You have to take some responsibility and look at your reports. That's one thing you have to do. But does anybody have any questions on this month's reconciliation? No. On the back of that reconciliation are the checks that he has written, but they go through July 9th. And when we reconcile, it's at the end of the month. We don't reconcile at the board meeting, so make sure that you remember that when you're looking at these numbers. Anything that comes in or goes out in the month of July is not, he's just showing you the checks tonight so you can approve those, but that is not on your financial statements. And it won't happen until the end of July when we do it again. So, in fairness to Deb, she inherited a mess, a total mess. And she did struggle. We did talk about a lot of things that we couldn't find. How the other people were trying to reconcile, I don't know. I don't know how to make entries in this. Nobody knew who was in there, who changed what. You're not going to go back, the other person's not going to go back every time they go to the computer to look to see if any of their numbers have changed. What a waste of time. That's why you do two different things like that.
Two different systems, you come up with
Same.
same number.
Then we gotta come up with the same number, yeah. I also gave you tonight a list of the budget. I put the budget in mine, it's not necessary really for the clerk, the treasurer to have her own budget, actual, right. But I do it because it's easy, it's what I always do. So it's there, and it helps me because then I print out in my Bible, for another lack of words for it, it's everything that I entered for the month by month, and everything that went out of my, so that our total checks that we did matches and all of that stuff. So I run those also, so my books is just like a second set. However, when it comes time to do your annual report in Form C, it's to come out of there. Because he's the gatekeeper for all of that stuff. Just so you know. So, I'm very confident of every number that's there that we did since, well, we had to kind of finish up December, and we balanced there as well, taking what they had. But then we started January 1st, and I'm very confident that everything is there, where it's supposed to be. So, do you have any questions? Please look at the budget one that I ran for you. I will give one to the highway department and one to the fire department as well tomorrow. I saw only, I think, 3 accounts that has the parentheses on the actual that are over budgeted, one being legal, one being in highway for the little red truck because he had an accident, and there was some things charges to that. Now, when money comes back, and we got a little bit of a refund from the insurance company on some of that stuff, that doesn't show on there that the money's coming in. So we have to look at that income when it came in and take it off of there, which we'll do some kind of a detail I can do some of that other detail and find that for you. I think there was one more, and that was in his buildings and grounds, and I have to do a detail on that one to see what's all in there. Sometimes, when we get the bills from highway or whomever, we get a bill, they're not coded. It's very difficult to code them because when I get a bill from, like CarQuest, I don't know, unless I take my time and run over to Rodney or to Pat if I catch them, to know where they went. So I usually give them one every quarter so they can look at it. I will give them theirs tomorrow. They can look at it, and if any of their accounts look off or too much for one of their rigs or something, they can come back to me and I can adjust that. I don't think it's very much. I don't believe it's even $500. That might be in a wrong account. So if you have any questions of me on that, please ask me. I'm happy to help you through that. There's more things that I can do with that. That's a summary. And I can actually do a detail for each and every one of those line items. On those line items. The same thing he kind of has when he gets this organized. Those line items will detail out each and every one of those checks, when it was written, who, whatever it was, so we can find it easy enough. And if they don't agree. It's the same principle as that, just another account. Another way, another program to do it. Once again, I gave you these ones before, on the first 3 months, I think. I could be wrong, maybe it was in April. I gave you a set of these and I asked you to look at them. Because they didn't balance. And the reason it didn't balance is because, I kind of stepping on your toes right now, is that okay? When we grabbed the budget, when we asked, and this had nothing to do with Deb, this was prior to Deb. When we got the budget from the previous clerk and treasurer, this was the date on it, November 17th, and we asked if this was the one that was approved, and they said yes. So I put mine in my computer, the way it is, with the line items. What I discovered was it didn't, and Mike picked that up immediately, and both Carol and I were there, and we chuckled a little bit because he picked it up immediately. Kudos to him. When we balanced, the total revenues didn't balance with the expenditures. And they were off by 109,000 and change. So what I did, you're going to see, just because without your notes or knowing what happened in that budget hearing, I don't know where they go wrong. So I created an extra line in the budget and I placed them there, just temporarily until somehow we sort this out. Because if you go back and grab your budget, wherever it may be at this point from November, and look at the numbers. Look at the numbers that were posted to the public, and then go to your line items and look at your total revenues was $1,027,083.11.
They actually have it in their packet in the budget section today.
Oh, yeah.
For later.
Okay, and then if you look at your expenditures, $902,963. Something got missed. Something's misplaced. There's no way for us to know, him or I, until somebody brings us something in minutes or something.
Usually we'll have that difference. The difference between revenues and expenditures will usually be denoted by funds reserved for this project, or that type of thing.
And that's what I did.
Be like one of the last numbers you see on the expenditure side.
I ran an
That's
extra
under
line.
the 2018 proposed, right, the 912?
That is correct, for the 18 proposed.
And then $1,027,000 is under the 18 proposed on the revenue side.
Yeah, so please go back and look at those. We're gonna need that little bit of assistance. It's there, it just wasn't placed on here properly, so we need to find out where
I
that
think I gave that to you guys last month, and I pointed it out to you, that should be back into the highway. Because I think Patty just forgot to take that last number and back it in. And I think I gave that to you last month or month before.
On mine, the one that I gave you, I did just do a line item, so I'll just take a look at that and fix it for me. Any other questions?
No.
This summary that we get right now, that you just gave us,
That's all mine. Mhm.
okay, this is current, not including the checks and expenditures for this month, correct? So this is technically at the end of,
I think that one in particular, the date is right on the top, and that one I ran today, and I believe it's right through today. Normally, it's just quarterly when you run them, but if you look at the very top of it,
but that's not including the checks that need to be approved today and dispersed.
yes, it is, those are also in there, I think. When I run it, it ran through 7/9. So 7/9, you're right. This is run today, but I don't enter them until the month is done. When I do this month, the month of July, will be done and then they'll be in there. So this is only through the end of December, even though the date on it is 7/9, because I ran it today.
Did you mean end of June?
What did I say?
You said end of December.
Oh, yeah, I'm 6 months either ahead or behind, but it ended in June.
Yeah. And anybody versus the actual report that I create for you would be through the end of the month. So
As well.
it would have been June 30th, but I couldn't create one for you because your revenues are artificially low because no tax deposits were put in there. And the expenses are miscategorized because there's negative 16,000 in accounts paid.
His, as he's paying bills, they automatically go into his. I don't get those bills, like today I got him to view them, but they won't get put in until the end of the month. Just keep that in mind.
Okay, so we're with the, Mike, are you finished then?
I'm pretty much finished, but I guess Donna would be looking for a motion to approve
Yeah.
her work.
Yeah.
Right.
So, do we have a motion to approve the checks?
Well,
It'll just be
that'd be a separate motion.
the financial statement.
Or just the financial statement? Okay.
I'll move to approve the financial statement for the town of McMillan for the month ending June 30th, 2018, correct?
June
For
30th.
June 30th.
June 30th,
June 30th,
2018.
2018.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I'll second.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded to approve the financial statement for June 30th, with the month ending June 30th, 2018. Is there any discussion? Okay,
Okay, roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Russ?
Aye.
Carolyn?
aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay. Now, do we have you had a chance to look through?
Yeah, you got a check listing report.
Mhm.
The last check that you approved at the board meeting was, you've got 2 pages here. One is a single page that summarizes bank activity from the 1st of June through the 29th of June. And that just shows you your debits and credits, what came in and what went out. And those are the numbers used on my half of the reconciliation at the bottom of the front page, okay? And then if you flip the page, you've got a 2-page listing of bank account. It says bank accounts registered as of July 9. And that's checking activity from the 1st of June through the 9th of the month of July. And we'd be looking for approval on in the check number 15663 would be your first check that needs to be approved, and your last check being on the last page, 15712, that we're looking for approval on. And there are electronic fund transfers on the 12th. Fund transfer number 1754 for 1149.38. There's another one, and this is when I took over. I had used my numbering system, but In hindsight, I probably should have just went with sequential numbers, and continued at 1755. But I take the date, and if there's, and then I put the number 1 at the end, and if there's 2 electronic fund transfers that day, I'll put number 2, 3, etc. So the next electronic fund transfer number that we're looking for approval on is dated June 26th, and it's numbered 0626181. There's another one on the 29th, numbered 0629181. And there's one dated the 3rd of July, numbered 0703181. And lastly, I think that is it. I think that's
The
it.
first one was what, 026?
026181. But I have to tell you that there's a latecomer. There is a, up at the top on 6-4, there is a deposit that wasn't entered into QuickBooks prior to my tenure. I had to put that in today to balance the books.
And that's the one you got asterisk to?
I do, I have an asterisk next to it, and it says not entered into QuickBooks.
That's for Wisconsin Department of Revenue?
Yep, and that's numbered 604181.
And what was the first check?
The first check number is 15663, and it doesn't appear in numerical order for some reason on the 15th of June.
It's the third one down.
It's the third one down on the 15th of June. For whatever reason, they're just not in numerical order.
156.
63.
Correct.
Yeah, it's
Down here. Okay. And ending in 15712.
Correct.
Got that now, but I do not have all of the numbers for the electronic. Just give me the
You can
numbers.
check off the, starting up on the 4th of June, number 604181 in the amount of $399.54. The second one would be on the 12th of June, and it's reference number 1754 in the amount of, also in the amount of $399.54. The third one being dated 6/26 and numbered 0626181. Fourth one be dated the 29th of June and numbered 0629181. And the last one dated the 3rd of July and numbered 0703181.
Okay, does somebody want to make a motion?
I'll try it.
Yeah.
I'll move to approve the checks number 15663 through 15712.
Let's see what's, it's actually 157.
15717.
17.
17, or it's the second?
The sequence is off.
Oh, yeah. Yep, thanks.
Okay,
Good catch.
17.
Thank you.
Good catch.
Okay, so it's 15717,
Okay,
along with check number 604181, correct?
Yeah, the electronic fund transfers numbers.
Along with 06121754.
I You've got 1754 is a separate number in itself on the 12th.
Yes.
And following number is 0626181. Is that what you meant to
Yep.
say?
026181, 029181.
0629181. Principal small.
What is it? 0,
0629181 on 29.
And then the last one is 07031181.
Yes. And yes, that's correct.
I'll second it. For a change.
In fairness, I think I'll go back to the old numbering system.
Okay. So the motion has been made to approve the checks 15663 through 15717. And I still don't have all of them. How many are there altogether?
That's, I have to count them.
2.
Oh, you mean electronic fund transfers?
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
6. Is there 6?
Oh, no, 5. Oh, wait, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, no, just 5.
Okay, so we'll go over those numbers then again. You just read them off, Mike, please.
Okay, Dave made a motion to approve check numbers 15663 through 15717,
Correct.
and electronic fund transfer numbers 604181, 1754, 0626181, 0629181, and 0703181.
Okay. 0703181 was the last one, right?
Correct.
Okay. So we have 604181, 1574, 0626181. And then I have, 0626181, did I say that?
0629181.
And 0703181.
Correct.
Is there any further discussion?
Do we have any outstanding checks again?
I haven't given you a list of the outstanding checks because it would ordinarily be automatically generated in QuickBooks, but the checking accounts had not, the bank, any information that you got on outstanding checks would have been done manually or through the help of her book. So I did not provide you with a listing of them because the checking account had not been reconciled since the February 28th.
Would you like those numbers of the outstanding ones?
Is it less than it was last month? So they've kind of been starting up.
10, 12. And some of them were because there was payroll right at the end of the month and they didn't get through.
I have a procedural question. Is it standard operating procedure at towns to routinely approve checks individually every month? Or is this something that we do differently than other towns?
It's very common to do it this way. There is a second type of procedure that you can use for a lot of these. It would involve, the same people have to sign the checks, but it would involve, the board would decide certain bills, generally routine things that you basically approve anyway, that they could be paid mid-month. You would still receive a report of what was paid since the last board meeting, the alternative method. I think 6044 sub 2 rings a bell, Mike.
I have to bone up on that one.
But you could consider doing that, and then you would have to approve less individual checks at board meeting. You'd still review everything, but you wouldn't have to approve as many at these meetings.
It seems odd to me, for example, that we're approving our own checks individually. It seems cumbersome.
Well, you did them all at once.
True.
And it would have went a lot faster if my electronic fund numbers were numbered sequentially.
Yeah.
But payroll is a real common one to have done during a month, and then just get a report of it later.
Thank you.
Okay, did we vote?
Okay, no, so discussion's closed. Roll call vote.
Aye.
Dave.
Aye.
Kevin.
Aye.
Russ.
Aye.
Carolyn.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, unfinished business. We have a CSM for Al Dialer. This was brought forward to us from, we have a resolution on the zoning ordinance amendment. The Plan Commission has approved this resolution on zoning ordinance amendment. So that the petition by Tim Breland on behalf of Alan and Deborah Geiler to amend the Marathon County zoning ordinance from farmland preservation to general agriculture in the town of McMillan. So what has happened here is the gentleman, Alan, and his wife Deborah have split their property, given half to their son, and then they're building a new house, and he's getting the older one, apparently. So the Planning Commission did approve this. So can I have a motion to approve the resolution on zoning ordinance amendment for Alan and Deborah Geiler?
Make the motion to approve the zoning ordinance amendment for Al Nyler's unit.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the resolution on zoning ordinance amendment on behalf of Alan and Deborah Geiler. Is there any discussion? Okay, Ms. Paul.
Roll call vote. Bob.
Aye.
Dave.
Aye.
Kevin.
Aye.
Russ.
Aye.
Carolyn.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
The next one is the Ken and Karen Seehafer. A month ago, we approved their zoning ordinance amendment, but then they changed their minds on the map that they had drawn up, so they have given us a second map now. It's still in the same area. They had split 5 acres into two lots, making them almost equal. They have changed that to change it to the proposed lot number 2 as 1 acre. And then the other one is, you've got the map there, I don't have my map with it. The other one is 4.5 acres, and then this one is 2, and I think that's called a low density, I can't remember. Can't remember what it is, low density something. Anyway, by splitting that off. So what the plan is for them to build a new house on the 4.5 acre, and I think then the one on the 1 acre is going to be taken down. So,
This is just changing the,
yeah,
accepting
you,
the
and
new map.
and Dean Johnson said, you know, we approved the resolution last month for the split to begin with, but now they've just changed the map. And so he said we can go by but we need the new resolution, which we have to pass. So it's the resolution on zoning ordinance amendment for Ken and Karen C. Hooper.
I'll move that we approve the certified survey map and resolution for Ken and Karen C. for parcel.
I'll second.
Okay, the motion has been made to approve the resolution on zoning ordinance amendment for Ken and Karen C. Hafer to amend their map. Is there any discussion?
Okay, roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Carolyn?
Aye.
Russ?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, those will, I will send these down. They need to be signed by all of us. So we can do this when we complete here. Okay, 2018 budget amendments.
Oh, but one question, the signed copies are gonna go where?
The signed copies go back to the county. The resolutions.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right. The 2018 budget amendment. Kind of had to do your budget stuff, your budget summary by committee, because, you know, the reasons that I showed you, that the clerk's computer didn't have all the information needed to create a budget versus actual report. So Donna's created an actual budget versus actual report for you. And I'm just giving you, for the purpose of demonstration, what the actual report is, not the budget versus actual, but you know, it's incomplete work, but the best work available based on what's loaded in the system. So, like as an example, your tax account, your taxes, your tax revenue stands at only about $68,547.30, and we know that's not correct, because there's a lot more tax revenue than that that's out there for you to collect. But that's just for this, I guess, is just for the sake of being able to compare some of the numbers that Donna helped, that Donna generated. But more importantly, you have she'd given you a budget, the budget summary, which was what was given to the public and also listed in the meetings. So you've got one sheet that says public budget hearing and special town meeting of electors, November 16th, and it shows total proposed revenues of $1,015,328. Does everybody have that page?
Yep.
Anybody not have a page?
Yeah, where is it?
Need to wait?
In this that you just
No,
gave us?
in your packet, it would have been in your packet. I
Okay.
was just giving you some supplemental information.
Okay,
It's, I'll wait till you get there, okay?
okay.
It's gonna look like this. This is what this is what was presented to the public.
I have it here.
In future packets, you'll get, I'm gonna all number the packets that correspond to the agenda item.
Mhm. here earlier, but
Yeah,
now.
you just looked at it. Get back. Great.
Oh, I missed it, sorry.
So we're seeing how the same.
Yeah.
So, and then your corresponding expenditures also add up to $1,015,328. So, like Donna was mentioning, you flip over to the next page and you've got a summary of the revenues, and I think you've got account numbers that are in the 40,000s. Those represent revenue accounts. And those, you've got a total proposed revenue in your line item budget of $1,027,083.11. Everybody there? It's a good number to
Yeah.
highlight, or circle, or whatever. And then your numbers, there's a page in 20,000s. There's an account number that's 24,211. Those are actually liabilities. They don't have a spot in here. If this was done differently, I guess they don't have a spot in here. They really, those are items that would appear on more like on a balance sheet, but were categorized as a sub-account in one of the revenue accounts. Anyway, so those you don't have to be as concerned about. But more importantly, on your expenditures page, the accounts that are in the 50,000s, starting at 51,000, and then going on to your last page that has, goes up to 59,900 for other miscellaneous financing uses, which would have been a good catch-all for the difference in your revenues and your expenditures. So you've got $902,963. Donna gave you a figure of the discrepancy between the two. Did anybody jot that number down? 100 and some thousand?
Yeah.
Anybody jot that number down when she gave you it? Well, in any event, that difference has to be accounted for somehow in the line item budget. My question is, Lee, and I guess this question's for you, Lee. Can you go from a line item budget that's been approved to an amended budget that's by category?
We tried to have this discussion a month or two ago, without my having seen the budget document.
Yeah.
So, the notice page, these first pages,
Yeah.
these are the notices, that's the notice to the public, right?
Right, that's
Yes.
what the public,
Okay.
and then that's what was approved because that's what's attached to the meeting minutes anyway.
This is right here.
Yeah, that and the detailed budget that you've got. The reason I ask is if you have to create any new accounts down the road, or if you go over any of these line item budget items down the road again, we're back to having the same discussion about amending the budget.
Right. What I recall from the discussions, it wasn't terribly clear what the motion language was, or Kevin, you had that down.
Just as far as what was presented to the board and what the board adopted was the line item budget, which was a worksheet that was handed to us, and that's what we did. I mean, there's benefits to having it both ways, between having a line item budget and having a general budget. General budget is definitely easier for the bookkeeping and everything else to work with. But it's, what did we do? It's simply a wordage thing and a document thing that was handed out, and
This whole package is what you adopted, right?
that's what was presented to the board, so that's
Yes.
what,
There wasn't, and at the time, there was not an explicit distinction made between adopting a line item or a general budget, right?
I don't think there was. Of course, your minutes are, I believe, they're
probably just
past
as a
a
budget.
year. They're past a year later. You review them from the previous meeting of the electors or whatever. And so yeah, I was scanning the minutes that were written, the draft minutes that were typed, and I didn't get a clear-cut indication as to which way to go, because they,
And so what I told the board then, Mike, and what I'll say again tonight is, if you're not sure, the err on the side of caution move would be the line items and address those.
yeah. One thing that I'd suggest to you is, perhaps, as a stopgap measure, you could, allocate, let's say, for example, for legal fees, if you determine that, we've gone over budget on legal fees, to allocate X number of additional dollars, and then decide where you want to take it from. And then we have the matter of shoring up the gap between revenues and expenditures that you have in your line item budget as well. And then talking about how to fund the disaster, how to fund any QuickBooks repair work you may or may not choose to have done, that type of thing. So have some type of stopgap measure passed until we can fix the books and give you a more detailed budget versus actual report, and then go from there. Because otherwise, I don't know what the alternative is.
I think part of the problem is not really, I wouldn't say the problem, but we were amending the budgets on a line item basis prior to. My understanding is it is the clerk's job as the record keeper and the checkbook keeper to keep track of the line item budgets, if this is what we have. And before we even pay the bills, the notification needs to be presented to us, and then we need to modify the budget prior to even paying the bills. I think at this point we've pointed at the elephant in the room. It would be nice if we had all the answers and could do everything 100% correct right now. I think if we have the ongoing discussion and we can work through this in the next couple months and get to the point that procedurally we are going to be doing things the right way, and then next year's budget could be simply a general budget, which would be easier for everybody, but still have the accountability involved in it. Then we wouldn't have to amend and have lengthy meetings.
So are you asking us how we're gonna handle this now?
Well, we were having this discussion before I arrived. And I've chronicled why I can't present to you a budget versus actual report. I think that your best numbers are the numbers that Donna presented to you at this juncture.
So do we want to just continue to work through this for a month or two to get us copacetic, so to speak?
you've got a couple of issues. I mean, you need to address where you're underfunded. You need to, and namely in the legal area and in the funds needed for the disaster, being the most important. And then you need to address the difference in the budget as to the difference between the revenues and expenditures, and create a line item to balance the two. Whether it be, there's a category, other miscellaneous finance uses, that's a good spot for it to land. But you may use that difference to fund your road, your culvert work.
I was assuming we had to buy some culverts. So the culvert fund actually got, is gonna have to get those.
Tomorrow, I'm going to complete all of the applications for us to try and retrieve hopefully 75%. And then we also have been advised to pick up, to fill out the petition for culvert aid from the county, which they will help split with us what the other,
For the oversized culverts,
yes,
when we upsize them.
yeah.
That's
So
recommended, but-
we have to submit those tomorrow, so.
So like if you look at account number 53300, it's the very top number is on the upper left-hand corner is 53,000 Public Works. Okay. Now if you look under, you scan down about 10, 12 lines, there's a number, it says highway and street maintenance. There's no money, period, listed in the line item budget, okay? I don't know how you maintain a highway and street with no money in the budget, but,
Well, we have,
well, I know, but I'm just saying, in your line item budget, if I'm, if you're gonna assign anything to that account, there's no funds, no 2018 proposed funds.
The 2017 was 29,976, correct?
That's what I see, 29,976.
But there was nothing put in for 18.
Well, it says local, but I don't know what the difference between, I'd have to look at the state chart of accounts to see the difference between 300 and 311, but I don't know if that,
If I recall, wasn't there some stuff in this that the numbers had to be here with the name to them, but they didn't
The
necessarily have
names
to?
were there in the past, okay, the accounts were there in the past, but then they were moved into a different account, is what it amounted to. So the ones that don't have any amounts in them, it was just moved to a different account, is all it amounted to.
So where was it moved to?
I don't know, you'd have to ask Patty on that one, she's the one that created it. She just put a different title to it, that's all it was, so it matched up with Form C. Because what we had before this was a bigger mess.
Was what?
I said because what we had before this was a bigger mess.
yeah,
it could have landed in 53,315 highway and street construction possibly. There's a good 86,686 in it. But my point is that, if you needed to create, you need to add some funds. That might be a good place for the disaster funds to land, or you could earmark up.
Okay, so we move along with this. On the agenda with this, it is listed training, disaster recovery, legal expenses, etc. So at this point, you guys have talked about and presented to us that there is a disarray in the QuickBooks.
Yeah.
And again, I think through the last month's discussion with, where we're sitting today and what we need to do, what's the training part? what's,
Well, I was,
For his training.
there was,
okay.
Okay, yeah, it's.
when I had interviewed, we had talked about your commitment
His
to training
training.
and that type of
Yeah.
thing, and you asked me what my goals were and that type of thing. But the week of the 15th would be year 2 of the clerk, certified municipal clerk training for me. But given the amount of work that the clerk's office has here, I don't see how I can take a week off from this place and get anything done. So there is no training dollars to talk about. I'll personally make the sacrifice to skip that in my professional development.
Okay, so do you feel by next month, we should have all the disaster recovery information by next month's meeting?
Hopefully, right?
Well, I don't know how fast they'll get
Well,
back
not
to us, but
necessarily
it's going
reimbursement
in
part.
tomorrow. It's gonna be, everything will be submitted tomorrow. So, I don't know how how they get back to you.
Okay, so then for some of the other things that need to be looked at, that it shows we were over budget on already just because of where it went, like buildings and grounds. We know the legal expenses, we are over on right now. So I guess I'll make a motion to table this till next month, when we can have the information brought back with the actual numbers, and hopefully QuickBooks is straightened out a little bit.
Well, you have to decide on whether, you've got more than 30-hour a week of problems here. And I'm not gonna work any more than 30 hours a week. So,
We need to talk about approving, bringing some extra help in for the accounting work.
And that's further down the discussion.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So that's a separate discussion. I think we should approve the excess legal expenditures at today's meeting rather than putting that off.
We'd have to know where we're getting it from.
You have to pick a line item in here that you're taking it from.
Mhm.
It's generally how you do that.
yeah. That's what I was gonna say, I was just calculating the difference between 902,963 and
I have $124,120, right?
difference is how much?
I think it's $124,120.11.
You got
Right.
11 cents? You got 11 cents to,
Well, I
What are you
use the
looking at?
numbers you have that are on here, so,
these are,
yeah.
Roughly $126,000, right? And that's in our favor? That's
that's it.
excess
That's-
revenue over expenses?
Yes.
So I think we should take it from there.
Oh, yeah, they have 11, yeah, I see,
Mhm.
I see that. So,
So I guess I'll rescind my motion if somebody else wants to make a motion and what line item we want to transfer the funds out to put into legal.
I'll make a motion to approve the excess legal expenses in that line item and to take the funds to cover that expense from the difference in the proposed 2018 numbers versus actuals.
before someone seconds it, can we talk about quantifying these numbers? To address the overage, so whether you wanted to take, the legal bills are upwards of 2,000 a month, is that a pretty fair assessment? I think I saw the last bill come, so they're about, right now, they're about 2,000 a month. So you wanna give yourself maybe 3 months of cushion or something, or more, I don't know how much you're talking about.
So you're talking up with 20,000?
Well, I would think somewhere between 3 and 6 months at 2,000 a month. So maximum 12,000, I think, not 20.
Up to 12,000 for legal. legal fees. Okay. How much do you want to allocate for disaster relief?
Right now, I have about, I think it's about $50,000 in bills. But that's, except for, I'm missing only one bill.
And plus, we've got a bid that I'll be working on tomorrow, a bid that's gonna get put in
Well,
the paper.
well,
And what's the value of that bid gonna be, you think?
what, we have no idea.
I mean, you have to
The
fund
way
it.
the way we usually, and that's usually for our extra projects, if we have a project, and we use our general transportation aids and our shared revenue. And the combination of the two is about 178,000. And that's what we that's what we figure, what we get in those two funds is what we put that together, and that is the money we have to spend on an extra project.
Okay.
And it's outside of your budgeted item.
You also had in your packet related to the budget discussion, there's upper right-hand corner, it says invoice data. I wrote on for budget/disaster construction. It's fire department.
That's all included in the disaster stuff.
That's all included.
That's all the equipment and the,
Labor, right?
all the help that we, yes, the labor.
Well, that's not a bill we're getting, right? That's an
That's all
itemized statement.
included in the disaster thing.
Right, that's an itemized statement that, fire department, that
They're not gonna
They're,
actually bill us, they're gonna bill the county or whoever's gonna.
it'll go, it will be separated out from whatever. Anyway, Don and I had it figured out, and I don't remember now what it was, but anyway, that it will be included in the labor for the disaster.
Can we put off the discussion, the decision or a motion on what to do with disaster funding until we have better numbers, both what are the total costs and what is the assistance we're going to get?
Correct.
Is that reasonable to put that off?
That's reasonable.
So right now, we're only acting on the motion for the legal fees.
That's the motion that's on the table.
Bob, you didn't see it, did you see any more negative numbers in her this year column, or
This is in
I thought there were like
the.
3
There
things.
are a few, yes.
uh, 2010 truck expense, buildings and grounds.
Buildings and grounds and the legal, and I thought there was one more.
truck expenses, 2010 truck.
Right.
Rescue 3.
I see, yeah, legal.
Going and looking at the other one.
Was what?
I was looking at the other one. Really nothing's done with it.
So your 2010 truck expenses right now are $530.76 in the red. Do you want to allocate any money toward that account?
Well, we can do all three, whatever, so, for the building. I thought we had, what did we say for that concrete was all part of the buildings here?
Did you have a guesstimate what that is?
Well, but we should have, I think it was $4,000, I'd have to go back and look, from what we had left over, we should have designated $4,000, I believe, into just this.
Yes, I don't
Yeah, so
remember the amount.
I don't know while we're over, I thought she said they were gonna look at that for the buildings and grounds, while we're over, all of a sudden.
Yeah, so I don't know why we're over. I don't know what that is.
It looks like there was $4,000 proposed for this year for building and ground.
So,
I think the estimate was 36, and I think we had 5 to begin with, and I think we went to, it should have been like 45, I believe, that we were gonna put in there for this.
So there's a big discrepancy. The proposed 2018 budget has, whatever I said, $44,000. And yet, on this summary, the budget proposed is $500, and that's why we're in the red, $5,400.
We didn't do the concrete yet, so I don't know how we got buildings and grounds off from this.
Is that under town maintenance meeting? 4,000? I don't remember either.
I don't think we should do anything with buildings and grounds. There's a big discrepancy here. We did budget money for that, significant money, and yet that's not included in this budget summary report that we received tonight. So I think we need to resolve that discrepancy before we make any changes.
On the line item budget that was approved, buildings and grounds,
I found $4,000.
what's that account number?
51600.
51600.
Sorry, it's 20. So it's even more confusing. There, it's $2,500.
One more time on that account number?
51600.
Okay, buildings, yeah. $2,500 was budgeted.
Yeah, depending upon what time that is done, because it was in January is when we amended the end of the budget, or February 1st. February's meeting is when we actually amended the budget for designating leftover funds from last year, so it won't show up on anything here.
But you wouldn't have reduced that from 2,500 to 500, would
No.
you?
No.
That's the discrepancy I'm concerned about. Unless those two don't match up, unless general buildings and plan is different from what Donna presented to us.
So there's another budget floating around somewhere, is that what you're saying? From February?
Well, there should have been an amended, but
There's an amended budget from February? Okay, so.
because we put money into the CD for the bridge, and we had money for the,
Don't the fire department have their building and grounds and then a separate building and grounds here?
I think so. But I thought in the discussion earlier, they said somehow a bill came through and it slapped somewhere different, so I don't think we worry about buildings and grounds. We know we're over on the lawyer's fees right now. That's already been discussed. I'd rather just wait till next month and we can have everything put in front of us and go, so.
Well, as your clerk and person that's supposed to hit the brakes when overspending going on, I appreciate if you address the legal fees.
well, yeah, we
There's-
did, we
that's
talked
the
about
motion
that,
that's
we
on
did
the
have
motion.
that, that's part of the motion,
Okay.
right?
That is the only, that's the current motion.
At
is to
the
address
current,
legal fees.
yes.
Hasn't been seconded yet.
So what is the motion?
Did you write it down, Mike, or should I try to recreate it?
Well, I believe that you're requesting or granting permission to take $12,000 to increase the legal fees budget by $12,000. How are you gonna pay for it? Are you gonna take that difference between the revenues and expenditures in this budget, which is supposed to be $124,120.11?
That's what the motion was, yes.
Yes,
Okay.
that was it.
And you want to, there's a category in your last account on your revenues, or pardon me, expenditures list of 59,900 other miscellaneous finance uses. Do you want to put the difference between 12,000 and 124,120.11 in there for now?
Okay. All right.
So you have a balanced budget,
Yes.
okay? So
We put that in there.
under other miscellaneous finance uses, we'll plug in
it's 59,000 there, 59000, correct?
No, it's actually, the account number, 59900.
Yes, so there's
But the
finance,
number you're gonna plug in under 2018 proposed is 112,120.11. And,
124,120?
no. you
What
got
was it, 112?
$112,120.11. And the 12,000 that Bob has proposed that you use
Take it
to
from there.
enhance the legal funds. What's that account number in there? Should be like a 5100 account.
51300.
51300.
51300 legal.
And then you just want to do the legal one, or you want the red truck change in there too?
It's up to you on the red truck.
I think we could add that in. See if we can.
2010 ain't the red truck.
Say that again?
2010 is the red truck.
Yeah.
Red truck is the 2006. 2010 is the plow truck.
What did you say? 2006, it's a small red truck. It's called the red.
He said 2010.
I gotta look at Don's report.
2010 is the older plow truck.
2010 says we're over $530.
I can figure that out really quickly by looking at that, semi-annual report that I gave you and comparing that to the budget. So the semi-annual report under 53,240, 12 and 13, and 14. Probably fine.
53,240.14 is the 2006. Yeah.
And 2006, and does that say how much has been spent so far for your truck? It doesn't list a year for the truck on it, does it?
Yeah,
It
on
does?
this one it does.
Okay. So you got a 2017.
8029, correct?
What's that?
That was for anticipated 70.
So you got a 2017 truck that,
We got a 2006 truck.
okay, and there was budgeted for that 3,000, and that semi-annual report says you spent how much?
Wow.
27, 80, 29, so, well, no, that was in 17. But there was a deer damage, sort of increased it, went over that budget.
Okay.
Semi-annual one we got says there's 2016 on there.
Okay, and the 2016, oh, it does?
Doesn't exist, so the 2016 on the semi-annual report is a 2000.
So that'll have to change to, yeah,
2006, 2000, 2010, and 2017.
so we'll change.
Okay, Bob, you had made your motion, do we have it all now?
I think we corrected the motion, updated the motion to include the truck overage as well.
The 530.06.
And how much are we putting into that?
How much do we need to put in?
How much are we over?
500?
6 more months left.
It's 600
Okay. Yeah, 600. And make it a,
round up the numbers or
to
whatever.
1,000 to make the math easy.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're gonna allocate $111,120.11 to the other miscellaneous financing uses account, which is account number 59,900. You're going to allocate an additional $12,000 to legal account number 51300. And you're going to allocate an additional 1,000 for the 2006 truck, which is
53240-14.
53240-14. And your revenues and expenditures will now, in your budget, your budgeted revenues and expenditures will now equal $1,027,083.11, just as your summary, your line item budget indicates, from, that was passed in November of last year. So, does that sound right?
Yes.
I'll second that motion.
So you got it down, right?
Could you repeat that, Dave?
Yes. In your sleep. Okay. Roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Russ?
Aye.
Carolyn?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, good, thank you. Okay,
5-0.
okay, we move to new business. Operator license request from Larry Wenzel, Bernard Wenzel, Richard Quirk, and Carly Schreiner.
Okay, as part of your operator license and Class B retail alcohol licensing process, it is a statutory requirement to have a law enforcement agency do a criminal background check for each person. And I'm not sure if that was done for the people that, for the operators, not the operators, but the retailers in town that received licenses last month. So I got an account on the Wisconsin Department of Justice webpage so that I can submit criminal background checks. When I was in Portage County, we just submitted a request directly to the Portage County Sheriff's Department. Here in McMillan, it's a little more problematic because you're right on the edge of Wood and Marathon counties. So you're looking at submitting criminal background checks to two different entities. So that's out with a little bit of steering from Lee. He turned me on to the Wisconsin Department of Justice website, which would allow you to tackle the whole state. So I did submit criminal background check requests for not only the 4 people that are requesting operator licenses, servers licenses to dispense alcohol, a bartender's license. However, I received a receipt and confirmation number from the Department of Justice, and I went to retrieve my information today, and it says that the bank account information was not correct. So I don't know how I got a confirmation page from them saying that they're taking this out, and an authorization number so that I could look up, so I could type in my authorization number and retrieve the necessary information. That request, I would imagine, has to be resubmitted, and I'll certainly do that tomorrow. If you read the Wisconsin Towns Association newsletters, they write a number of opinion articles, the attorneys do, and it just so happens that Lee had written one of them about alcohol licensing a few years ago. And it chronicles what you need to do in the process. But the very last sentence in his summary said something to the effect that don't despair if you made a mistake. Statutory, you're basically not going to get in trouble from the state. Is that pretty much it, paraphrased?
You're not liable for the act of issuing an alcohol license.
Right.
So if someone screws up with their license, there's no liability to the issuing this
Right.
permit.
So what I did for these operators, Richard Quirt, who actually holds a bartender's license with the city of Marshfield, and Bernard Wenzel and Larry Wenzel, who've had operator licenses here in the past, and Carly Schreiner, who will be bartending for the Fall Festival as kind of a backup to Adam Knapp, I believe. I went on the Wisconsin Circuit Court Records website today and researched each of the applicants, including the applicants that were listed as the, if it was the LLC, that would be the agent of the LLC, and looked them all up and did not find any records that would involve alcohol or their ability to dispense alcohol. So and I've also these alcohol license applications were in, well, some of these are dated May 10th, one's April 28th, one's April 20th. They just somehow didn't make it on their agenda for the last meeting. So I called these folks and explained to them that there could be a lapse of maybe upwards of 10 days because the board isn't going to be able to take up this information until the 9th. I guess what I'm recommending for Richard Quirt and Bernard Wenzel and Larry Wenzel and Carly Schreiner, all of whom have made applications. Incidentally, Carly has her responsible alcohol server training done. And everybody's paid their fees, and everybody checks out on the Wisconsin Circuit Court Records website. I guess what I'm asking is that you approve each of these 4 individuals contingent upon with the understanding that if something negative should appear in their Department of Justice background check, that their license be revoked. That would be my recommendation. Otherwise, 3 of the 4 will have some type of impact on their livelihood.
So you did not get the background check back from the state?
Not from the Department of Justice. I had to do a supplemental check.
Okay, but now I'm just gonna go backwards on the checks right now a little bit.
Yes.
Electronic fund was,
Yes.
we already paid for the background check, we just didn't get the information.
Yes. Yeah, that was dated last week, and I just discovered it at 3:30 today.
Okay, so do we have a motion? We need a motion then.
Yeah, I would ask that you approve the operator license applications for Richard Quirt Jr., Bernard Wenzel, Larry Wenzel, and yes, but maybe you might want to do Carly Schreiner separate because you may or may not be waiving her fee. So I would say, and Carly certainly could wait another month too. We could do no action on Carly, depending. But approve these applications with the understanding that if they have a negative Department of Justice background check result that appears, that the license be revoked.
Move to approve Larry Wenzel, Bernard Wenzel, and Richard Quirt for operators licenses with the understanding that the negative Department of Justice report comes back that they be revoked.
Second?
Second?
For positive. Department of Justice.
Adverse.
Adverse, okay, I'll use adverse.
Adverse.
Report comes back, revoked.
Report is revoked if adverse report is received. Okay?
Okay, we have the motion. Is there a second?
Yeah, Kevin had seconded.
He did, I didn't hear him.
Okay.
Okay. So the motion is to approve the operator license for Larry Wenzel, Bernard Wenzel, and Richard Quirt Jr. Depending on approve it with the understanding that it would be revoked if something comes back from the background check.
Revoked if adverse report is received.
Mhm.
And that would be for the period.
Man,
Mhm.
I'm sorry to do this, guys. I just thought of probably a better way.
Oh,
You could issue these as provisionals
oh,
and then reconsider it next month with the information in front of you. That would actually be a much better system. Provisional's good for up to 60 days,
okay.
and then you wouldn't have to worry about trying to revoke, because that would be revoking a license.
Okay.
But I mean, they would have it for 60 days, and then after that, it would be done, or you
It
can...
either expires or you've approved the regular one anyway.
I'll rescind my motion.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Okay.
So just to have a motion to approve a provisional
Okay.
license for Larry Wenzel, Bernard Wenzel, and Richard Quirt Jr.
So move.
Period. Okay. Dave, so moved. Okay. Second?
Second.
Kevin? Okay.
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Kevin,
Aye.
Russ,
Aye.
Carolyn.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Can I ask one thing though, that you take Carly's and Heifer's move till next month, so it doesn't get missed off the agenda? Because that will be her last chance to get one.
We could do it, we were gonna do that separate.
Just separate, right?
Separate motion.
We're just gonna do it separate.
Okay.
This will probably be on the agenda next month for all of them, for.
Right, I just didn't want to get missed, hers, because you
Because
had the
it's
three of them,
all
and
fest.
hers is, right.
Yes, okay.
So do you want to do a provisional for Carly
Carly
as
also.
well?
Mhm.
And that might get her actually through September 8th.
I'll do it.
What was the discussion on the waiver of fees for that? Provisional fall into that or not?
I believe the provisional license is $10 as well.
Wow, dear.
The statute. I don't know, could you rephrase the question?
Okay, I'll make the motion to approve Carly Schreiner for provisional
For,
permit with
for our license, operator license.
operator license. And we can waive the fee right now, just put that in and be done with it,
Okay.
and waive the fee.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Dave?
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded to approve the operator license, provisional operator license for Carly Schreiner and waive the fee. Is there any discussion? Okay, vote.
Roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Russ?
Aye.
And Carolyn.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, the next thing is part-time employees for highway maintenance, Rod Bauer and Josh Troutman. This is to help Pat when he needs help. They both have CDL licenses, and periodically he needs help driving the truck while he's doing his maintenance. So, the part-time employees for the highway, the salary is $14 an hour.
How many guys are on the list right now?
Hmm?
How many guys are on the list right now?
Ronnie,
Just Ron?
yeah. So we need extra help periodically. And they're both right here, so available.
I'll make the motion to approve Rod Bauer and Josh Troutman as part-time highway employees as needed.
And a rate of
$14 an hour.
$14 an hour.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded to approve the part-time employees for highway maintenance for Rod Bauer and Josh Troutman. It's $14 an hour. Any discussion?
Okay, roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Russ?
Aye.
Carolyn?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, audit of town books and QuickBooks repairs is the next item.
I mentioned that I've got some experience working with Jeff Kropp of Accounting Workshop, who actually does audits and Form Cs. I think that he's a very affordable alternative to Schenck. And I'm estimating that the repairs are gonna be anywhere between $1,000 and $2,000. I'm looking for your approval to fund that.
Can I ask a question? These repairs, are they gonna take the old bank statements, and they're going to go into the QuickBooks program and put in items that were missed from the QuickBooks program? So it,
Well, I think on the deposit side, for in the tax account, I think that I would have to enter in the missing tax revenue data. And that would get, I bet you that I I can get that tax account whipped into shape and change it from the negative 2.5 million to the 336,000 that is supposed to be in there by doing the deposit entries. The negative 16,000 in the accounts payable account is gonna take a lot of detective work.
That's what you're asking,
That's,
primarily what you're asking
that's
for.
one of the things. And then the other things are the chart of accounts. I mean, as you can see from, I think, Lee, would you agree, you alluded to this at the previous meeting, in that budget that was passed with the summary, on the summary page, the categories are not correctly named.
They were a little bit different, yeah.
Yeah, they're a little bit different. You're gonna wanna make sure, what he'll end up doing is you present them with the Form C, and then he'll make sure that your chart of accounts are numbered correctly so that it aligns with the Form C. Right now, that's gonna take a lot of work to make sure that those numbers are good, and I think that I mentioned at my interview, having a second set of eyes is kind of like a poor man's audit. But he had told me that making sure that the chart of accounts is correct is about $1,000 proposition, and of course you've got some. I'd want to make sure that I mentioned the payroll items as an example. Like I said, on a firefighter's paycheck right now, fire department meetings are being charged to the town board account, and there are some other line items line items in payroll that are not where they belong, and I need a second set of eyes looking at that, because I've used QuickBooks for 25 years, and it's giving me a headache.
So what is it just exactly that you're asking for here?
Well, there's repairs that need to be done in QuickBooks to make sure that it's aligned with state chart of accounts and Form C. He may pick up some errors along the way, which isn't a bad thing. He's gonna need to sort out the negative $16,000 in change issue in accounts payable, because I certainly don't have enough time to do that. Whatever other errors he discovers. So I'm estimating that's
$1,000 gonna take care of that or not?
I could tell him, hey, we got $1,000 to spend, what can you do for me?
We got $50 to spend.
Yeah.
You just gotta negotiate. Bob's not gonna start with $50.
Yeah, so I could start, yeah, but I know he gets $1,000 to do a Form C too. Back in the old days, which wasn't too long ago, it was probably 4 years ago, I think he did a Form C for us for $600. I think the cat's out of the bag.
Can we just get a quote from him
You could
for
get a
next
quote,
meeting,
I mean,
and then bring it forward?
yeah, but the problem is your books aren't gonna be ready for next meeting.
He's able to do this now, you've obviously been in contact with him.
I talked to him about it a week ago, and I just felt it out, and I didn't know the magnitude of the problems until probably Monday, Tuesday last week when I really got into the books. But
I'll make a motion, we contact Jeff Kropp for assistance, whatever other services for assistance in this. I don't think we need to,
Can we go for amount up to a certain amount? Approved for up to a certain amount?
not to exceed $3,000. Well, because you had a $3,000 figure before, 1,000 for one, 1,000 for something else, and there was another one that you had $1,000 in. And you said up to 3,000.
Well, $1,000 is what he gets to do a Form C, but he gets $1,000 to make sure your chart of accounts is right.
Okay.
I don't think you need to do 3,000. I think up to 2 might get the job done.
Told me you got $1,000 to work.
Right.
And then before we pay the bill, we have to amend the budget anyways, depending on what line you want to pull that money out.
I'll lean on
Somebody's gotta find the money in the budget too.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
So we'll be doing an amendment again with that.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
I'll second.
okay, Kevin, Jeff Crop, Accounting Workshop, Stevens Point. Up to $2,000 for QuickBooks repairs, QuickBooks and chart of accounts. Accounts and payroll items. Okay. Discussion.
So, do you just vote? Do you want me to repeat all of that?
I have here, motion by Kevin, seconded by Bob, to authorize Jeff Crop of Accounting Workshop in Stevens Point, funds for up to $2,000 for QuickBooks, repairs, chart of accounts, and payroll items.
Form C? Did you
Oh.
say Form C also?
Yeah, I'll do Form C, put Form C. Okay.
Okay. Okay, vote.
Okay, roll call vote, Bob,
Aye.
Kevin.
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Russ,
Hey,
Carolyn,
Aye.
motion carries 5-0.
Town clerk professional development,
I'd recommend no action taken.
no action taken, okay. Community picnic,
Received a phone call asking, I don't know, would it be easier if it just comes from your mouth?
Sure.
Okay.
We had a really nice community picnic last year. And I think I've gotten calls from a lot of peers, and they would like to do it again, and would like to see what funding the town is going to donate. And this is not a fundraising picnic. This is for the benefit of everybody. You bring a dish to pass. Last year we had a band. This year I probably won't be a band unless we can find one reasonable. But we're kind of going with the same format as last year. People had a good time. We figured for the first year we had about 150, 60 people.
what is the date?
Pardon?
What is the date?
The 26th of August.
Can we get you to change the date?
To what?
Something that isn't just a week before, 2 weeks before Fall Fest?
The people that come to the picnic are not the people that come to Fall Fest.
Well, there were a lot of other people that told me that they canceled, they figured that Fall Fest was canceled because of the community
Well, that was a
picnic.
miscommunication on their part because there was never anything in the newsletter saying it was canceled. There was 2 things.
But would you consider doing it earlier?
This date worked good for us. You know, and when I called down there, first we went for the 25th and we were told yes.
That date is open, but I'm asking you, would you consider changing that date to make it farther apart from the Fall Fest?
I don't, because this is supposed to, when school starts, people are gonna be around. You know, this is
I don't know
supposed
what
to
your
the same
other
date we
feelings
had
are.
last year. And like I said, people enjoyed it. There was There was no contributions taken. You know, we weren't raising money. This was to try to heal this town.
But this is not, by doing it like this, is not the way to do that completely. I don't think when you have it so close to Fall Fest.
I don't know what the numbers were, if they were up or down for Fall Fest last year. I know that ever since the Brew Pub started their thing in town, it happens to be the same weekend, they had a pretty good band.
Yeah.
And that's gonna draw the people. And then Rod and I, we talked about that. It's pretty hard to compete.
Well, but
with
to me,
what
this is a
we have here unless
competition.
you have
Yeah.
that big band.
Yeah.
You know, the Brew Pub just happened to start their stuff at the time, but I think it was like $5 to get in, you got a cup and all the beer you could drink. You know?
Well, I just think it's like competition when you have it 2 weeks apart. I'm all for it. I just wish it wasn't, that you would consider a different date and make it farther apart.
Everybody I talked to liked this idea, liked this date.
So they wouldn't come if you changed the date.
Pardon?
You're saying they wouldn't come if you changed the date.
For getting everything organized together? Kind of puts a punch on it.
Okay, I've spoken my piece, so I don't know what the rest of you feel.
What were you looking at for funding out of the?
Reese, it was last year. Last year we ended up spending just a hair under $2,500.
The rest went back.
So the rest went back, but we did get 3.
And looking at the budget,
Take it on the park plan like we did last year. There's money in there.
Because what the town provided was the meats
And then
and
drinks
and the
and
drinks
bands
and
and
band
tent.
and tent. And if we don't know if we're gonna be able to find a band, tent was cheap. $160.
Lee, I had a question. When I was at the town of Stockton, we had a ski hill. And there was an entity called the Friends of the Standing Rock Park. And they were soliciting donations. And I presented it to the board because I just got a piece of mail and I presented it to the board saying this group was asking for donations. And the board explained to me that they couldn't use public funds to fund it. Do you have any experience in that department?
This is more semantics than anything. There's not really donations in the law. However, it would be a town event, okay? This would basically be a town committee, budgeted with town money, and they could throw a town event. That's fine. So just semantics, we use those words, it's fine. But technically, you don't generally have a donation in town law because you have to use your funds for a public purpose. That's the issue. But the town committee using town funds, I mean, that's fine, so. Which is virtually what you did.
Well, that's the premise. We want
Yeah.
to give back to the public.
So, a matter of semantics and it's fine. So, okay?
Yes.
Would you guys consider,
No,
like, next year?
No.
Or in the, you know?
no, we started this as an annual. We sent it out as an annual.
Right, but if
Fall
there's-
Festival started out as an annual. We're trying to do something for the public.
But if it's too close to the Fall Fest?
I don't think there was any harm done last year with it being a couple weeks
I'm not
apart.
saying all that, but I'm just asking if you did it next year and some other time.
We're
later,
going
or
1 year at a
later.
time. This is the date that we asked, that was available. The people I've talked to are happy with the date.
There are a lot of people that aren't. So
Call me.
I don't know how you're gonna,
Don't have me call.
It seems to me it's,
yes.
I'm just wondering about, this is the first time, this will be the second time?
The second annual.
Okay, so the first one, 150 people showed up?
Yeah, which was a good start.
Yeah, and so, but, you know, $3,000 for 150 residents when we've got a larger community, it seems a little steep to me to be spending $3,000. I'm saying spend $2,500 or something, yeah.
Did you get your flyer? Because it was sent out. There was a flyer went out to
Yeah.
people, what price
And
they gave away.
I do see that's a prime vacation weekend. Yeah, it's right before school starts, it's near the fall fest, all of that, I'm just saying. So, I would heard.
I think it's a wonderful idea to have a community picnic and to bring people together and try to do some healing. I think that's most important. All of us, I think, would support that. But this town is too small to have two large events within a very small time period. And so why not put it off until, you know, spring, late spring, early summer next year, and then have it an annual event every year at that time and have a fall festival. So you have a late spring, early summer event and a fall event. Is that reasonable to consider?
We're gonna have a picnic anyways. I've got the ball rented. I mean, we presented it to the board, we asked.
So at what level you wanted to continue with the same as last year with prizes and everything else?
Well, that's why we put it to the board, what they were willing to contribute to this. I
We
mean,
gave away about, what was it, $900 in prizes last year? No, no.
no, nobody's just.
Some of them are donated.
That's it.
I believe it's 8 to 7.
Second,
Then you can have prizes.
Okay, somebody want to make a motion? Or a suggestion or something?
I think it's too close to Fall Festival. We're there, there's a lot of people put a lot of hard work into that to raise money to give back to this community. And I'll repeat it again. We've done it for 28, 29 years. We've contributed back to the community over $300,000 in that time period.
But this is
That
not a
did not come out of
fundraiser.
the taxpayers' pocket. If I support a community picnic, if it wasn't supposed to Fall Festival, I like the idea of earlier in the spring, June, whatever, that I can support, but not this year.
Well, would it work to be after the Fall Fest?
Your kids are in school, I mean, you know, we're running into the fair and everything
Well,
else.
the fair is moved up. The
Fair
fair
goes
is
Well, this
moved
will be the
up,
last
so
day of the
that's.
fair anyway.
Right.
No, figures already.
And the kids
What'd you say,
It's
Dan?
the last day of the fair
Oh.
for the 26th. It's a Sunday afternoon. Same what we did last year. We had a good turnout. The kids enjoyed it. They got prizes out of it. I can't see where it affected Fall Festival at all. Same people went to Fall Fest. Different people went to the community picnic.
I was at both and I didn't recognize a lot of people there.
Well, you recognize them though at Fall Fest, right?
They've been coming for 28 years and I've been involved in it for 28 years.
Yeah, that's what I said. There's a different group of people that goes to the community picnic, different one goes to the Fall Fest.
I said I could support a community picnic, but not next to Fall Fest. That's all clear I can make it.
I'll make a motion to set aside $2,500 out of the park fund, 200 towards the McMillan Community Picnic on August
26th?
26th.
26th? Yeah. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded to take $2,500 from the park fund to support the community picnic on August 26th. Is there any discussion? Any more discussion?
I think we're borrowing from Peter to pay Paul right now, and with the rain event we had, and the legal expense we have,
Had nothing to do with the park fund.
we may have to borrow from the park fund,
Oh,
okay? There's my statement, and I'm sticking to it.
you clean it out, then you don't have to worry about it. You know, then any
All right,
repairs.
this is a discussion, Deb,
I understand that.
okay?
I would consider supporting something like this at a different date. Can't support it for that date.
So you know, we are going to do this event anyway, whether you support it or you don't. So that's pretty much the way it's gonna be. We are going to have a community picnic.
Would you consider in the future
In
changing
the
the
future,
date?
we can, but not now because the dates are taken.
I know, understand that.
Okay.
So
we
in
can't
the
really move
future,
it up.
But have it, you know,
When was it,
in the
when was it
spring or whatever.
decided? I have a question. When was it decided?
Well, you're working on it right now.
You've already picked a date and rented a hall. When was that decision made?
We asked in April, I asked at the annual meeting, if people were interested. I waited for people to contact me. And then finally I went.
It was made
And
a
where was
week
the
or so.
necessity? Where was
It
it, when
was
is it
made
sent
a
out?
week
How
or
are
so.
people gonna find out about
It
it?
doesn't matter.
Word of mouth. We'll put some signs up,
It doesn't matter. You just need
just like we
Call the
did
vote.
last year.
Discussion is ended. Roll call vote. Bob,
Nay.
Dave,
No,
Kevin,
Yes.
Russ,
Aye.
Carolyn.
to- I'll say aye regretfully, because I think it's very harmful to Fall Fest.
Motion carries 3-2.
Okay. Treasurer's position. Our ad hoc committee has come forward with
Oh, you had to skip number 18.
Fall Fest Festival mission. I can't remember.
I don't know, I think you kind of chronicled the mission in your previous discussion.
I think so.
You could
I think
opt
we've
for no action taken. It's
no
up to you.
action there, yeah. Treasurer's position. The ad hoc committee has come forward. Joe, do you want to read it or do you want me to?
Go ahead and read it.
Our committee has agreed on a person to fill the treasurer position until such time as another change needs to be made. The decision was split among the 4 members of the committee. 2 members agree with the decision, 1 disagrees one disagrees with the decision and 1 is abstaining. Our recommendation is to have Donna Salto remain in the position as treasurer. So, we need a motion to approve the ad hoc committee's recommendation.
I'll move to accept the ad hoc committee's recommendation.
Is there a second?
I'll second
Motion has been made and seconded to accept the recommendation of Donna Siltema in the position as treasurer. Is there any discussion? Okay,
None? Roll call vote. Bob,
Aye.
Dave,
it. Aye.
Kevin,
No.
Russ,
Nope.
Carolyn.
There you go.
aye,
Motion carries 3-2.
okay. Thank you for your committee's work, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
What, I have a question.
Yes.
Is there to be a term or anything?
It's, yeah, it's 1 year.
We didn't specify.
Well,
We didn't specify that, did
that's
we?
all based upon election, non-election, whatever's coming up with that. It's gotta be based, same as what the clerk position
How do
is.
we like with the clerk?
You could do a separate motion.
Separate
Talk
motion?
about the term.
So, that matters. The treasurer position is also possibly gonna be elected? That's up for consideration? Okay. So then you'd wanna make the term for not to exceed what that next elected term could start.
1 year.
It's not a 1 year from today, though.
No, but the term could be for one.
It should
not
be
to-
till the April election.
Correct.
Term should be till the April election, because if something's gonna change with the election, that's where it would
That's
happen.
when it will change.
And if that doesn't change, then the board would be open to reappoint or
Right.
find somebody else.
Mhm.
So just for clarification, as of right now, because we didn't have an ordinance or anything put in place to have appointed positions before, it resorts back to elected, no matter what, on an odd year.
It's pretty, we haven't found it, but it's pretty clear you had an ordinance at one time. You got lost over time. Now with this document I got tonight, I can best advise you on how to potentially change back, okay, which I'll have probably the next meeting. And then you got till November, so your October meeting, you can still decide if I can confirm the short option works, okay? So you want to appoint for a term up to the next election, which would be, not the election, but the take office date, which would be up to April 19th, I believe.
It have to be April of the next year, because that's when appointments, and after the spring election is when.
May is when we make appointments.
Okay,
Appointments
but,
are
Well,
made.
but even when the election, when
If it were to be-
if we run, don't run, et cetera, when all new board members, elected officials take it.
if it were to become, imagine it becomes elected. In that scenario, a person elected in April of 19 would take office on the third Tuesday of April 19th, which is the 16th. So the maximum appointment that would do at this time is to a term running until April 15th, 2019.
Third Tuesday.
You want that person to be your treasurer at the annual meeting.
Yeah, at least.
You don't wanna
At
have
least through that meeting.
somebody that's just got elected to be your treasurer at that annual meeting.
And your,
You want-
You
So it
want
would be
last
the
year's
appointments
treasurer,
or.
last year's treasurer should be
No, no.
that
well,
treasurer.
Yeah, because if you, to be elected in the April 19 election, you have to be able to take office on the third Tuesday.
Right.
So you can't have two treasurers. So this,
Yeah, it's that we're just thinking within it right now. It's either that date or through the appointment of when the appointments would happen in May.
we're gonna know by November whether you're probably gonna have.
I have a question on that, Lee.
Hold on, we're at. Do you guys follow me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Doesn't that have to, in order to have that on the referendum, you're gonna have to have the referendum done by November, am I correct? On
We
November,
made-
for November's election, in order to have it on the ballot for April?
I gotta look into that then.
Okay,
What I'm
because
telling you is that if.
otherwise, if you're just gonna get it on the, in there by November, you've got, your ballots will be out for November by then already. And it wouldn't come up until the next election is when you'd have it on referendum.
Right. If it's not so simple as rescinding an ordinance, you're probably gonna need another appointment, but you'll know that and be able to do another appointment. Okay?
Because it both can't be the same year.
Right.
You could hold the clerk over for a year or the treasurer over for a year.
to be on.
Did they-
Bruce Wyman, M636 Galvin Avenue. Could you give me the ordinance in the current book of ordinances that you're speaking about?
It's not there.
Then it doesn't exist. No, it doesn't exist. Can you admit that? Because the only ordinances that are in effect are the ones that were passed by this board. And they're the current ordinances. There are no other ordinances.
I understand it's your opinion.
Why don't we just make a motion that the treasurer is appointed for a year or whatever comes first. If she goes to election, she's out.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
Because I would.
That makes
I think
sense.
that all of our appointments should be no more than a year. That's my,
Okay, that's your motion.
yeah.
That's the motion. Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded for the appointment of up to a year for the treasurer position. Or
The third Tuesday. in May.
Or if an elected position would.
Through the third Monday.
if that would pass.
Yeah.
Third Monday?
Well, that's when it expires.
Okay. Third Monday.
In April, if it should be converted to an elected position.
Mhm. Okay. Any discussion?
Okay. Roll call vote. Rob, Bob,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Kevin,
Aye.
Russ,
Aye.
Carolyn. Motion carries 5-0.
One last item, just quickly, my goodness, it's late. Expense reimbursement policy. We had talked about our expense reports that we fill out. And what is I don't remember what all the questions were. Kevin, you were part of it?
What we had discussion on was time cards and what is approved, what is not approved for board members, for putting down for meetings, and you know, there's been a lot of
And the
discussion.
mileage and all that, what price of the mileage and so forth, right?
Well, I mean, that's set by the state, that's.
Well, it depends on whether if that's what you choose to go with. So,
I think a lot of townships do things different. And, you know, you have the reimbursement part down on there too, if that's just, well, it's expense reimbursement, not necessarily meetings, which would cover everything. The expense reimbursement for, you know, individuals buying stuff and being reimbursed as board members or fire department members or garage or anything else. You know, do we have a policy that is clear cut on what we're gonna do? You know,
well, reimbursement, you just provide the documentation of something that your invoice or your bill or whatever, and what that you paid for. Is that correct, Mike?
Well, you just, as far as I know, you just have that form that you fill out with your, you know, your stipends
write down
for
what
the
your-
meetings
yeah.
and your quarterly wage, and there's a line for your mileage if you so choose to submit for mileage. But,
Well, what about other expenses, you know, Gary, you got light bulbs or you replace that balance and stuff. You know, I thought that there was a lot of discussion even before I was on the board about, you know, being reimbursed for certain things, and we didn't want to have reimbursements for stuff like that, that it needed to be approved or run through the charge accounts. So, I mean,
Let's hear what he has to say.
I believe we looked for a reimbursement policy and couldn't find anything, or anything that made much sense, so.
Right.
There's another thing that we can just redo and be done with it, okay? 4 elements to reimbursement of expenses policy. Who can get reimbursed? A board member is different than staff, so you wanna have a spreadsheet basically, who gets reimbursed? For what exactly? Mileage, other items, whatever. At what rate? So actual expense, mileage, usually you want to say something like the IRS business rate because it changes every year. So if you set a number, you get out of date. And then what proof do you require? So a receipt for an item, a form filled out with your mileage, where you went, whatnot. So those are the 4 elements. Who gets reimbursed, for what, at what rate, and then what proof do you want to require?
Yeah, I think in the discussion we had, whatever happens in the township, there is no mileage reimbursement. It is just part of your job and your duties, and anything you leave the township and it's not determined in Marshfield, I wouldn't consider that.
No, not exactly.
You know.
So you, when you go to out-of-town meetings or even,
Scheduled meetings.
The Towns Association?
Yeah.
yes, those are what you collect mileage for.
I will tell you this, that the statute makes it clear that if you're the clerk or you're the treasurer, if you have an office that's designated at the town hall, you are not eligible for reimbursement of mileage to come to work if you have an office at the town hall.
It'd be same for board meetings. Because it's the difference between reimbursement of expenses and commuting. No one gets paid for commuting, right? So we probably need to generate some sort of master list here with these categories and the different positions and what's going on for them.
That was pretty standard, you got reimbursed from the town hall, not from your home, not from your grandma's home. So the mileage from the town hall to wherever you're going. That was,
Out of town,
out of town.
out of town only.
Yes, yes.
Right. Okay, so number 1, our rate is what the IRS,
54.5 cents a mile right now.
or whatever it is per year, that's what we go by. 54 cents,
54.5.
Current year's,
0.5.
Can we pick the state because it changes every state?
it's in
No,
the current year's IRS business rate for mileage.
Current year.
IRS business rate for mileage.
Okay. Okay.
okay, who gets reimbursed? The board gets reimbursed. Who else gets reimbursed? Fire department?
It's in our SOGs.
Pardon me?
I said it's in our SOGs that we do. Nobody's
Okay.
ever submitted.
All right. For what?
For the
So
fire
what are you
department's
going to be
training.
reimbursed
Well,
for?
I don't know if there's anybody else with the planning commission that business outside of the town hall? No? What about the road crew?
They got the trucks
They probably drive a company truck, they probably drive the town.
Well, yeah, they don't usually go out of the town, except maybe the town for.
Town board, what about town officers?
Town officers, if you go to meetings or whatever out of town. Okay,
For what?
for meetings or education,
Meetings. Education, okay, education.
or like you drive to Wausau to pick up ballots and what have you, the clerk,
Election.
Town business.
town business.
Town business. Yeah.
And you will have a receipt for that. That you have paid for it. Is there anything else?
Mileage log, I need some type of
Pardon me?
The
A
mileage,
written request, let's say.
written request for mileage reimbursement, receipt and written request for reimbursement. Okay. I have who can get reimbursed, town board and fire department and town officers, for what? Meetings, education, and town business, at what rate? Current IRS business rate for mileage, and what percent of expenses? If you're submitting a receipt, you get reimbursed for 100% of actual expenses or some other figure?
So that's where you might need to revisit. What should a board person be able to buy to get paid back? The clerk probably will need to get office supplies down again, otherwise get reimbursed. Otherwise, you just have your, you know,
Well, we have charge accounts set up, pretty much that most of the, or the businesses that you order through, they bill us. I mean, I don't know how often, and we have a charge account at Office Max. Is there any place else that we, I don't know what,
and that's different. A charge account is a charge account to the town.
yeah.
So it's what do you buy personally?
And you might
expect
need
to
some
get paid back.
incidentals or whatever, but, you know, I don't know.
Like bulbs, plumbing things.
Yeah,
Well, Menards has got that covered.
they've got that pretty much covered.
But like for Fall Fest and stuff, we buy soft serve and stuff. I mean, we don't have anybody with an account that does soft serve and that. I mean,
There's budgeted though.
Probably just incidental.
Yeah,
and there's I mean, for us over there, it's charging cords and stuff. Most of that stuff all comes offline. You don't buy it. I mean,
well, didn't we have we had approved a credit card, right?
what's approved.
Didn't
is,
we approve a credit card?
Yeah.
Oh, I was also gonna, well, I was also gonna talk about the issue of sales tax, because, too often, when incidentals and whatever are purchased, we end up paying for the sales tax too, where really the person ought to be carrying around our tax exempt card so that they can present it to the retailer at the time, you know, so that we're not, because there's no,
I would think the minimum amount of time that would happen if you put like a $20 limit on something and you just don't.
yeah, it happens a lot more often than you think.
Even on the charge cards, that's kind of,
Yeah, it happens a lot more often than you think. So like, what I used to tell like firefighters at town of Stockton, it's like, don't, you know, you submit a bill to me with tax on it, but we're not gonna pay it. We're not gonna pay the sales tax on it. You know, we'll reimburse you for what you spent, but not the sales tax. Because there's really no right way to account for it, other than bury it in whatever account that the item gets charged to.
So how do we address it?
Well, I mean, you know,
Including,
like he said, this criteria for what do you get reimbursed? You could get actual expenses less any sales tax paid. It's up to you.
So we just revisit this next.
I think you gotta revisit
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah, okay, all right,
You gotta get started on it.
yeah,
So,
okay, very good.
The more we had.
Yes,
No
Gary?
action taken.
On that sales tax, when I was replacing the ballast, before I decided just to change the bulbs and go to those that don't require ballast, I could buy from a friend of mine wholesale with the tax cheaper than we could go to Menards and buy them without
No,
the
without
tax.
the tax.
And I turned in receipts, and, you know, they reimbursed
Okay.
that person.
Well, we'll work on this. Bring this back for the next meeting. Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion is made and second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
10:34 PM.
My God.
And then,
We must.